Welcome, everyone, to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. My name's Jared Mello, and I'm the Shepherd of Black Sheep. Again, another change of plans tonight. I was supposed to go over the TikTok house scandal with the TikTok couple, but as events would have it, everyone's talking about this incident, and I decided, and the poll decided, that this is what we should be talking about here. So here we are. We're going to talk about this tonight. And I guess before we're going to go break it down from every side. I'm going to talk and listen to the lawyer's side, political pundit side, everyone's side. We're going to get everyone. So before we get into that, though, here's my thoughts on the matter. There's two different categories here. There's the legal category and then moral category. They're two different things. Legally, he'll probably be able to get off the hook. Honestly, I think the defense team would probably be able to say there's a reasonable chance he was in fear for his life. And so that's legally how it's going to go. Now, personally, and how I think about the matter in a moral way is, to me, using lethal force in that spot should be the last resort, really. But he's in that spot and he makes the decision to say, you know what? I got to fire away. It's my life or hers, and that's what he chose to do. Also, let me be very clear. I don't agree with her trying to go away. I don't agree with that. I wish she would have stayed. And then the argument for many people is, whether she was intentionally trying to hit him or not, and whether he was hit or not. I think at most he was grazed, but I haven't really seen any videos that clarify that one way or the other. But grazed or not, right? I think she should have stayed, but she panicked and there's conflicting reports of what she was supposed to do, right? Her wife is screaming, leave. I had even heard other agents told her to leave too. And the one was trying to tell her to get out of the car. She should have gotten out of the car, clearly, right? Now, was her mistake, though, worth her life? Personally, I think no. I think if you're that guy, you have time to get out of the way, pull out your firearm, and successfully shoot her. There's definitely time just to get out of the way, and then she's alive, and you can do what you have to do. But again, legally, he's not going to get in trouble, I don't think. And even if he was, Trump would probably pardon him. That's what I would think. I agree with that, Heather. Again, she didn't handle it perfectly at all. Absolutely not. I just wish if I'm an officer, I want to have enough respect for life in that case where it's just the last resort. I think there's other things morally he could have tried to do before that. And again, that's not the legal argument. That's just my opinion on the matter, where some people are saying, oh, how do you know? She was going right at him, so he had to make a split-second decision. And yeah, legally, he'll probably be able to get away with that. But he was also easily able to get out of the way as well. So, I don't know. Disappointing. Disappointing all the way around, I would say. Hello, Kat, George, not interested, Heather, Ann, Ellie. Welcome to the chat, everybody. Tonight might be a long episode, depending on how it goes. But perhaps everyone has this issue fatigue already, you know? You should ideally comply with police, but he didn't respond correctly. Of course, Kat, of course. They definitely should have complied. I just think there should have been other things first. ICE agent. It was an ICE agent, which also kind of makes it confusing in some way. But she was trying to agitate and get in the way of their job. Yeah, she was trying to do that. Absolutely. But that's also not a license to kill either, I would say. Don't forget, welcome. He also was dragged. Yes, he was. Yes, he was. And I just think, and I was debating people about this all day, because what happens is if you don't agree with someone completely, they think, oh, you must be a radical leftist or you must be a MAGA person. And it's like, no, I see the angles of it. It's just not as clear cut in terms of the moral question than some people are making it seem. Legally, he's probably going to be able to get away with it. Me too, Ellie. Me too. But the first one, Mr. Bruce Rivers here, Bruce Rivers, Dr. Grande, Megyn Kelly, who else? Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, probably put a couple lefties in there too. And we'll see what we come up with here.
And here's the thing. You want to fuck with somebody who has a gun, expect to get shot. I mean, it's as simple as that. You're not supposed to shoot into a moving vehicle for a couple of reasons. One is you could hit somebody else. You hit a car, it ricochets off. Number two, what about your partners that are there? Did you see the proximity to the partners? I mean, you got one guy on the side and you're shooting at the front. I mean, how dangerous is that? If you're the lawyer for the officer, certainly you try to paint her as an obstructionist, as somebody that's impeding this ICE operation, as somebody that wants to get in the way and it was told to get out of the way and told to get out of her vehicle.
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the...
And then that's exactly what the defense team's going to say, right? Oh, he was in fear for his life. He had to make a split-second decision, and boom, he did. That's going to be the legal argument. I just think as a human being, to me, it kind of just rubs me the wrong way that was his first instinct to pull it out, his firearm, pull it out, and then shoot her like that 3 times. Like, yeah, even if it's legally justified, it still rubs me the wrong way that he did that.
criminal lawyer. And who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And it's gonna react to all the self-snitching. Oh.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, your board-certified criminal defense lawyer, coming to you with my gold Irish cufflinks on. It's a somber day today because we're talking about Miss Good, who lost her life in an ICE attack. I'm just going to call it attack because she was attacked. But we're going to show some clips. We're going to dissect it a little bit, and we're going to talk about use of force. And there's a lot to talk about. This was an operation by ICE, and there's this whole ICE has put 2,000 troops, basically. I'm going to call them troops because that's how they're acting. They're acting like troops. They've got Kevlar on, they've got camo on, they're masked up, they're loaded up, ready to rock and roll, and so we're going to talk about what that means as well. So, but before we get to that, ladies and gentlemen, this is brought to you by AskALawyer.com. AskALawyer.com is a very effective way. For $49, you can get the advice of a living, breathing lawyer. AskALawyer.com. For example, if you have an issue with ICE, and you want to find out what should I do as I'm hiding in my bed for a second. I deal with people who are undocumented almost every day. Almost every day. I have, and when it comes to immigration, I deal with immigration lawyers all the time. Because what I do as a criminal lawyer has an impact on somebody's immigration status, right? So if somebody has a case and I lose the case, well, they can be deported because of that case. But if I win the case, well, all of a sudden they can't use any facts surrounding that case, and they're in a much better position. Quote, case in point. Last September, I had a case in Anoka County. We show up for the day of trial. My client is there, and ICE shows up and swoops him up, puts him in ICE custody, doesn't allow him to go to his trial. And it was a criminal sexual conduct case. He was working at Denny's as a cook, and this gal who did not want to be there, she was 15 and didn't want to have a job. Family friend of my client decides, what better way to not work for Denny's anymore, but if I tell them that he sexually assaulted me. Police didn't get the video. And anyway, long story short, that really impacted my client because he got picked up by ICE. I pulled some strings with a friend of mine and got him out of ICE custody back into Anoka jail, at the Anoka County jail, and we went to trial on his case. And guess what? The jury came back in less than an hour and acquitted my client. It was an absolute bullshit allegation. It should never have been tried to begin with, to be quite frank with you. And so now he's able to stay here and has a much better, that's why I love what I do, because we affect somebody's life, right? But when you have people who are undocumented, we have, the right to enforce our borders and to, deport people who aren't here legally. I get that. But do we want, do we want 2,000 troops to just come into our communities and rouse people who are at work and at school and whatever? And I'm not advocating, for sanctuary cities by any means. I don't like troops on my fucking streets. Trump has talked about putting the National Guard into certain cities and having the military take control of law enforcement. He doesn't do that in Houston. He doesn't do that in Dallas. He doesn't do that in Miami. He doesn't do that in Jacksonville, Florida, where there's like murders like you wouldn't believe between gang members. He does it in blue states. Okay, enough of the politics of this whole thing. So the troops are...
and that's true too. It's very intentional that he's only sending them to the blue states. That's true. You don't see them going to the red states. And they'll say, well, the red states are because they're enforcing it better, which isn't always true, really. Because I've always said this. If you really wanted to address immigration, you go after the employers. You go after the employers hiring the illegal immigrants. If you did that, you take away their incentive system to come here, and they don't come. If you really wanted to handle it, that's what you would do.
Here and here's the thing. On this morning, when Miss Good was shot, which was yesterday, I was on my way from one courthouse to my office. And as I'm traveling down the road, these guys that were part of this operation passed me up. And because I see the vehicles that they passed me on the highway. So I saw them going to this situation. First of all, I don't like protesters at all. I'm just kidding. They're pains in the asses. And during the Floyd trial, we had the courthouse all fenced off, and they were across the street. No, we won't go. No, won't. Pick, suck my dick, whatever they say. But I get they have the right to do it. As irritating as it might seem. And what's the penalty for protesting or even fleeing when it's not a death penalty, right? So I see these guys speed.
And that's a good point too. Like, surely this woman should have complied. She should not have fled or done whatever, right? But the penalty for that is not death as well.
Past me, I pull over because, whenever you have an emergency vehicle going after, on the road, you have to pull over. Anyway, so I see these guys and I'm like, something's going on. I almost followed them, to be honest with you, because I was a gawk.
And again, I'll repeat my take here as people are strolling in. So legally, he'll probably get away with it. They'll probably determine it was a justified shooting because what the defense will say is he was in fear for his life. He sees the car coming in his direction, and he felt he had to act instantly. And that'll honestly probably work. It'll probably work. But the moral part of it to me is, yeah, that legal side will work, but I just think it should be a last resort having to do that. And like, as you saw, he got out of the way, pulled out his firearm, and then did that. And he seemed to do that pretty easily. When the ambulance came, they asked how many people are injured. They just said the one woman who is dead. They didn't even think to mention him. So legally, he'll get away with it. But I just wish, as someone who is working for law enforcement or the government, you would just have a little more respect for the human life aspect of things, right? To me, all of them should be using the least amount of force necessary. Now, that being said, there are plenty of cases where the cops are extremely justified and people fight them on it, or they'll call them racist for it, but it's not racist at all. They're just doing what they have to do under the circumstances when it looks like someone might harm them. I just think in this case, being that it wasn't another firearm, it was simply the vehicle, like, I think there were other things to try first. But that being said, like I said, he's probably going to get away with it legally.
like anybody else. But I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't actually in retrospect. And let me tell you just something about immigrants, people coming into this country. The percentage of immigrants who are involved in criminal activity as opposed to the number of immigrants who are law-abiding and, undocumented, but law-abiding otherwise, and, working to make something for their family is at or below the percentage of our normal citizen population. You get what I'm saying? So, and that is a documented fact.
So Beautiful said in the chat that it's against police protocol to shoot into a moving vehicle. It's against the shoot into the vehicle if there's no threat of death. That's the big if there. So again, the defense will say there was a threat of death. But ultimately, I would agree it's a kind of a careless thing for him to do. You don't know what's behind her. You can hit other civilians or children. I think it was a little bit of a reckless action by him. But again, he'll probably get away with it.
Regardless, if you're here illegally, you don't have the right to stay here. And a lot of people do, and they hide in the shadows, and they work and they work and they work. I don't have any problem with people leaving their home, and even if they're not unsafe, even if it's just poverty. I mean, do anything for your family. I would do it too. I just would. We can take the hard right approach, and that there's nothing illegal about kicking people out of the country that don't have the right to be here to begin with. Fair enough. I get that. Why isn't that applied to the businesses as well? I mean, we've got big factories and all over this country that are employing all kinds of illegal immigrants, don't we? Or undocumented immigrants. They're all over the place. We do. How come we don't have raids on businesses? How come we don't have, the federal government shutting down businesses that are employing people who, that they're targeting? Really, let's take a look at. So let's just start with the news clip. This has been all over the news. You guys have seen it on the news.
We've just learned the woman who was killed was 37-year-old Renee Good.
A witness caught one angle of what happened on video. A warning, though, it could be disturbing for some viewers.
Now, I don't know what she was doing there. ICE is doing whatever they're doing, and people are protesting. And here's the thing. You want to fuck with somebody who has a gun, expect to get shot. I mean, it's as simple as that. But there is also a force continuum. You know what the force continuum is? The force continuum is you start with a certain level of force, like verbal commands, and then you escalate until compliance. And you don't use lethal forces on the very, very end.
And again, part of my opinion on the matter is I don't think she was trying to hit him. I think she's simply trying to leave. The argument people are making for the agent is, well, he can't know that for sure, right? He just sees a car coming at him. He has to act. But to me, I think she was trying to leave. And I think he easily could have gotten out of the way without doing that. But again, legally, he's probably going to get away with it.
Of the force continuum. And you're not supposed to use lethal force unless you are facing imminent death or substantial bodily harm.
What the?
You hear 3 shots fired, a crash, and then you see witnesses running to help.
Now we're gonna go back to this video in a minute, but listen to more of this coverage.
The woman who was shot died. Federal authorities say that driver was trying to run over an ICE agent. Not long after, tensions quickly boiled over at the scene. Agents sprayed some protesters with a chemical irritant, trying to get the crowd under control.
I don't like seeing people in fatigues, in Kevlar, in army helmets, and boots on our soil, in our neighborhoods. I just don't.
So no, it's not that I can read her mind. You just want to believe the best because it's easier to digest. No, it's that if she wanted to hit him, she easily could have. You don't turn the wheel all the way to the right to go out and onward if you wanted to hit him. That's what I would say.
I don't like seeing it.
This all played out in South Minneapolis near 34th and Portland, where a large crowd is still gathering this evening.
About a mile from my house.
And she gunned the gas because everyone's screaming at her. She's getting conflicting orders. People are guns are pointing at her. And when you're not used to that situation, people act sometimes emotionally and they panic. And I think that's probably what happened.
We continue our live team coverage of this breaking news now. I believe we're going to begin with Connor White, who's been at the scene all day. Connor?
Good evening. The number of people.
Connor just got his paper route and is doing this on the.
And again, of course, she should have gotten out, but she panicked. She was getting multiple different orders. One person telling her to get out, other people screaming at her to drive away. And so it can be confusing. And given that confusion, to me, you should be less likely to use lethal force in the confusion of the circumstance. That shouldn't be your first instinct, especially when there's so much confusion.
Side.
People here has really ebbed and flowed.
Look how young this guy looks. Maybe I'm just getting older. Everybody looks so young now to me. I don't know, but he looks like he's about 14.
Throughout the 9 hours since that shooting, we've seen here as this vigil gets underway that more people are flooding in. It's really shoulder to shoulder, standing room only, so to speak, here just off 34th and Portland. A lot of people here to express their anger, but also to honor 37-year-old Renee.
It's just very disappointing that that was his first instinct to do that. Legally, he'll get away with it, and people can blame the woman all she wants, but that mistake shouldn't have been a death sentence.
Good, the American citizen who ICE shot and killed earlier this morning in an incident that bystanders say simply did not need to happen. Now, this was recorded by one of those bystanders. We showed you some of this video off the top. In it, you can hear several shots after the red Honda backs up and begins moving forward here on Portland. The car crashes and a woman gets out. The driver is still in the driver's seat for some time with blood covering the interior of the car. That woman appears to be Renee Good, who is brought outside of the car eventually and receives medical attention from law enforcement. Though witnesses tell us ICE appeared to stop a man who was claiming to be a doctor who wanted to help.
A man on the street next to me said, "I'm a doctor, I'm a physician, allow me to get closer to provide emergency medical aid." The ICE agent said, "No, back up, get on the sidewalk, stay on the sidewalk."
The failure to render aid is just astounding here. Show me your credentials real quick. I mean, you got a medical license in your wallet.
While that was happening, another guy was shouting, "No pulse, no pulse." And maybe 2 minutes later, emergency medical services showed up with an ambulance. And I saw them carry the body out of the vehicle and bring her halfway down the block and around the corner where somebody administered emergency CPR.
In all fairness, it's very difficult to do what you need to do when you are surrounded by people like this.
Now, as you can hear, there is still a large crowd. It is a passionate crowd listening to some speakers following along in chants. We'll go to our Adam Duxter soon, who will have a bit more information on what's happening right now. On the law enforcement side of things, we know there is a joint investigation into the shooting underway between the FBI, that's the federal level, and the BCA here with the state of Minnesota. Connor White, WCCO News.
The BCA is the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. It's not a local law enforcement agency. It's a statewide investigative agency that's used primarily by the Attorney General's office and in certain crimes, and like task force crimes, and they have a lab and that kind of thing. So let's take a look at the video. I'm going to slow it down to a quarter of its speed. Now,
all right, so this is the big part of it here, right? And there's several angles of this. This is the closest angle. Now, the guy who fires the shots, he has a phone that people are calling a body cam. It's not a body cam, it's a phone. And what you see is a bunch of confusion in that. You hear the woman the woman driver's wife yelling at her to go, which wasn't helpful in this case. And then what you see is him drop the phone. And there's a noise that you don't really know what that noise is. It could be the first officer yanking at the car door. It could be the car clipping him a little bit, but you just don't know. That video doesn't tell you it one way or the other. There's other videos from further away where, it could have clipped him. It might not have clipped him. To me, there is no definitive evidence one way or the other yet. But again, in terms of the case, it's not really going to matter. What's going to matter is if they can say, is the car moving towards him? That's the defense's case. Doesn't matter if it hits him or not. Was the car moving forward? That's what the defense is going to say. But again, regardless of the legal side, I think least amount of force necessary. That's what I would think.
You've got what I think is a nice car right there. And then you have the woman is Renee Good in her vehicle right there.
Yep.
And you can see her brakes are on. It looks like she was actually attempting to move just as this Ford Explorer is going in front of her. And it looks like she's got her arm out of the of her driver's side window. And if you keep in mind, a vehicle just passed, so she's not trying to ram anybody. And
so again, in accordance to the phone video, that's not this or the other couple angles. It's the most recent angle. There's a phone angle. What looks like happens is the phone falls, and there's a thump. What's the thump? Is the thump him getting hit by the car? Is the thump the phone hitting the ground? Or is the thump the other agent who's yanking on the car door? I don't know the answer to that question, but I think it could be all three. But where I've been having trouble with people is unless you see it exactly how they see it, they get mad at you and tell you you're delusional. And I'm like, I just don't see there isn't enough yet to know those things, right? And that's not about the legal case. It's just, what is that thump? We don't really know. But a lot of people are saying, nope, we definitely know. And it was definitely him getting hit by the car. And I just think there's other possibilities. It could have been the other agent yanking at the car door. It could have been the phone falling to the ground.
He's a lot, telling, like, kind of waving people through. And you see this black SUV here? That's the kind of SUV that I saw passing me on the highway. And you saw that Suburban there. She's just sitting there, not doing anything. She's no threat to anybody at this point, right?
And again, I think the woman should have gotten out. I think she panicked a little bit. But also, I think the ICE agent panicked a little bit too. Like, if you're using your head, I think you can easily just get out of the way. But I think there was an element of panic on his part too. Now, if you look into his backstory, he got dragged by a car for 30 feet a couple months ago. Maybe that's in the back of his mind. And so he's a little bit trigger happy in that case. But if that's how it is, it's still a tragedy. You don't want this to happen, right? I think these are the kinds of things you want to avoid at all costs. You want to make it so that this is the very last resort, is what I would say.
Now they're walking towards her, so she's going to try to move. So she's going to back up, and this officer attempts to grab her door.
It almost makes it humorous with this slow motion noise in the background. It's like a comedy sketch, but it's not a comedy sketch at all.
So I'll turn the volume down. Let's turn the volume off on that. All right. Now he's at the door and he doesn't tell her, get out of the car. get the fuck out of the car. You know, and one of the things about these ICE agents, you know, there's an influx of these guys, right? And their training has been cut in.
And again, all this woman was doing, she was trying to disrupt the ICE agent's job. What is she accomplishing with that? Absolutely nothing, really. I mean, ICE is going to get around her and do whatever. So she's really just kind of like virtue signaling at this point. There are other ways to voice your displeasure than to do all this, because you're not going to be able to stop them. There's other ways you can maybe try, but what is this way going to do for you? Nothing. Nothing.
Half is what I'm understand. I've always said cops need a lot more training. They need a lot more schooling. So he's got his hand inside her vehicle.
And that's a good point, Jem. I made that point on Instagram the other day, which made a lot of people angry. I said, if you're going to say what this woman did was attempted murder with her vehicle to the ICE agent, there's plenty of videos of ICE agents hitting civilians. So if this is attempted murder by her, does that mean those other incidents are attempted murder by the ICE agents? I mean, just something to think about. You want to be consistent out there.
Now he's on the side and you got another agent on this side. And you got one right in front of her. If you can see the guy right there, that's the first shot. She's not going after him. You can see her wheels are turned to the right. You can see they're turned to the right. She's not trying to run anybody over. And you're not supposed to put yourself in front of a fucking vehicle. I mean, that's just safety. First shot. You see the first shot go there. Now look at this. This is at 16 seconds into the video. The officer involved here is at the side of the vehicle. He's not in front of her. His hand.
They're saying the woman driving towards him, they are saying that's attempted murder. And then I threw out the counter example, the ICE agents that were hitting civilians with their car. If this is attempted murder by her against the ICE agent, what do you call it when the ICE agents are hitting civilians?
Is pointed directly inside the driver's side window. So we only have one bullet hole in the windshield. It was reported that there was another bullet hole in one of the side mirrors. There's no other bullet holes. And we know, I think we can safely say that one of the shots came directly from the driver's side at point blank range. Within 18 seconds, she's dead. Why wouldn't he just let her go? Don't stand in front of the vehicle. If somebody's not complying, you got her license plate number. You can go to her house and arrest her for failure to obey a lawful order or fleeing in a motor vehicle. I mean, you could do that. What would be the crime here? I mean, if you...
Okay, so let me pause this here. It's at 1911. I want to find it's not a body cam, it's a phone cam. But I want to find a version of it that's not going to get this whole thing demonetized. Phone cam. This.
And this just in, we're now seeing new cell phone video captured by the ICE agent who shot a woman in Minneapolis on Wednesday. The video obtained by CNN provides a new first-person perspective of the deadly encounter. We do need to warn you, it is disturbing.
So that's her. RIP to her.
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you. Show your face. I'm not mad at you. That's okay.
And this is the ICE agent holding his phone. It's not a body cam, but he's holding his phone and he's walking around the car.
We don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later.
That's the woman's driving's wife, who's now probably devastated.
That's fine. U.S. citizen, former.
This is him walking around to the front.
Come at us? You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the car.
So he's telling her to get out of the car, and she definitely should have. She definitely should have.
Get out of the car.
So here it is. So what was that noise? I'll play it again.
Out of the car.
So what was that? Was that him being hit? Was that the phone dropping? Was that some other Asian at the door of the car that was yanking? I mean, you can't see. You can hear the noise, but what's the noise? So now she's dead, and she drives into the car in front of her.
Vice.
And that was it. I think you can't tell what it was. It could have been, but that noise doesn't tell you for sure he was. But that's the video that everyone's saying is evidence that he was clearly hit. I don't think it was clear that that's what it was. It's possible it was, but I think there's other things that also could have been. Well, because she got shot in the face. She got shot in the face and is dying. And so her foot just hits the gas after that. And I don't think she was trying to hit him. That looked like to me she was trying to get out of there, backing up to leave. Again, he very well might have gotten grazed in it, right? But I'm saying I don't think she was trying to hit him. I think she was trying to back up to leave. But that's not what the defense is going to say. His defense is going to say, nope, she was coming right for him. He had to act instantly. And that's what he chose to do. That's what they'll say. Whoops, lost you all for a second there.
He said, why wouldn't he just let her go? Don't stand in front of the vehicle. If somebody's not complying, you got her license plate number. You can go to her house and arrest her for failure to obey a lawful order or fleeing in a motor vehicle. I mean, you could do that. What would be the crime here? I mean, if you analyze this in the same context as, say, the George Floyd case,
And again, I clicked the wrong button. I got out of there. But let me rewind a couple seconds so we don't miss what Bruce says here.
From the driver's side at point blank range, within 18 seconds, she's dead. Why wouldn't he just let her go? Don't stand in front of the vehicle. If somebody's not complying, you got her license plate number. You can go to her house and arrest her for failure to obey a lawful order or fleeing in a motor vehicle. I mean, you could do.
I mean, and I agree with that by Bruce too. It's like, why not just sidestep instead of doing that? And morally, I totally agree with that. But like I said, legally, it's probably going to go the other way. But I agree with Bruce here.
Do that. what would be the crime here? I mean, if you analyze this in the same context as, say, the George Floyd case, you know, you have to look at use of force and the continuum and what officers are allowed and not allowed to do. It's the same standard for Derek Chauvin as it is for this guy. You know, you're not, first of all, they're taught not to shoot into a fucking vehicle. You're not supposed to shoot into a moving vehicle for a couple of reasons. One is you could hit somebody else. You hit a car, it ricochets off. Number two, what about your partners that are there? Did you see the proximity to the partners? I mean, you got one guy on the side and you're shooting at the front. I mean, how dangerous is that? You're only supposed to do it if you're in fear of substantial bodily harm or death. Very traumatic for this community.
And he's right. You're only supposed to do that if there's potential for death or extreme bodily harm. And to me, and especially since we know what's happened, that can change how we see it too. But to me, he easily got out of the way. And at worst, he was grazed by it. So, in fact, only grazed because when the ambulance came, they asked how many people are injured. They only said there was one injury. They didn't even think to say he was injured. So, especially since we know that, to me, he could have gotten out of the way. So it's just disappointing. It was disappointing that was his go-to thing.
To have these ICE agents.
And it's disappointing she didn't stop too, especially knowing now that we know how it ended.
Come in. So let's take another angle at it. This is from So her foot must have been stuck on the accelerator.
And this is the angle from further away that initially people were saying, see, this angle's proof that he was hit. To me, it's really difficult to tell from this angle. Yeah, and it's possible he certainly was grazed there for sure.
When she crashed. So what they did is they had to turn the vehicle off. That's why you heard that sound over and over again. So sad. Let's hear what one of the witnesses has to say. There's no question that in that angle that you just saw that she's trying to get away and she's not really intending to mow anybody down.
They clearly wanted her out of there because she was the main car leading the protest, is my understanding. I talked to another guy who was driving behind her, but she was very successful in blocking traffic. She was doing what she was set out to do, and so they wanted to get her the hell out of there. Yeah.
So it looked like she was impeding ICE vehicles.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
That was her goal.
Whether it was or not, I mean, she was attempting to leave. So it's been bantered about, she's would have made.
And again, more than one thing can be true at the same time. Yes, all she had to do was get out, but it's also a quick reaction to go to shooting her in the face several times from that. That is also true.
A difference if she's a willful, obstructionist, or if she's just dropping off a kid, and I think it does to a certain degree. However, you still don't shoot into a moving vehicle unless you're, looking at substantial bodily harm or death. And she clearly is turning away and waving cars through. There was a car that just got through, so she wasn't trying to impede that person. If you're the lawyer for the officer, certainly you try to paint her as an obstructionist, as somebody that's impeding this ICE operation, as somebody that wants to get in the way and it was told to get out of the way.
And I appreciate all the kind words in the chat today, because all day today I'm hearing I'm a radical leftist, I'm a loon, I'm ridiculous, I'm stupid, I'm dumb, I'm fill in the blank with whatever thing. because I just said what I said in this video. Now, the thing is, when you're commenting and writing text, you can't get all of your thoughts out there like I can when I'm speaking in a video. So what did I learn? That I shouldn't even comment. I shouldn't even post until I'm doing a video where I can have a back and forth with someone and talk my whole view, because my views are pretty nuanced with it. It's not black, white, this, that. No, there's a lot of things going on here.
And told to get out of her vehicle. And the uncertainty of what's going on is something that can't be lost. However, I still come to the conclusion that he could have easily just stepped out of the way. And, it was, I think Trump tweeted that he was almost killed which is just ridiculous. I think they said he went to the hospital and was released. For what? I didn't see any injuries at all. So let's hear what our fair mayor has to say.
The mayor did not hold back when speaking about the shooting.
He had this strong message for ICE.
And I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get the out of Minneapolis.
Okay, if I want to lower the rhetoric, would I use those words? And I love to swear, right? I love to swear. Come on.
I mean, it doesn't help that person said that, but he's emotional. He's upset that someone lost their life. And that's, a fair emotion to have, I would say. And as I would say to Brandon in the chat, legally, he's probably going to get away with it. I just think that it shouldn't be the first resort. Like, he easily got out of the way. That's what I'm saying. It shouldn't be the first resort to do that. Legally, there won't be consequence for him. And even if there was, Trump would probably pardon him. But just as a human being, I think as a human being, you want to have respect for life. And yeah, you don't like this person in the car. She's been antagonizing you all day. But that isn't a death sentence on its own. And yeah, it is a felony to flee if a law enforcement officer is trying to stop you. Yes. But the penalty for felonies, for 99% of felonies, is not death.
But he's frustrated and he wants to sound tough. But what are you going to do? I mean, there's nothing you can do. If ICE wants to be here, they're going to be here, right? And it's up to the citizenry, to do whatever they're going to do. But I don't advocate anybody going against ICE. Fight it out in court.
Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite.
WCCO's Reg Chapman was at that press conference for us, and he joins us now with more reaction from the mayor and the police chief. Reg.
Our camera saw Minneapolis City Councilor Jason Chavez with a bullhorn, urging the crowd to protest peacefully. But the mayor and the police chief are urging the same thing, to try and keep the calm while the investigation plays out.
We've dreaded this moment since the early stages of this ICE presence in Minneapolis. Not only is this a concern that we've had internally, we've been talking about it.
We ask that the community continue to call for peace. We understand people are going to be upset about what happened, and people are going to want to exercise their First Amendment rights.
There's just no reason for you to get in the way of ICE.
And he's correct about this too. Like, she wasn't going to accomplish anything with it. It was like just a virtue signaling attempt.
Saying that respectfully, because I get how frustrated the people are. The people are very frustrated. I mean, we don't need to be a sanctuary city. At the same time, we don't need to have over enforcement. And I think that's what we have here. So, the thing about it is we're so aptly represented with leaders, whether Democrat or Republican, and our leader in Homeland Security, so fashionably coiffed with her, her suede hat and her brown shirts. There are brown shirts. Let's hear what our dear leader has to say.
You asked about a shooting that we just had in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It was an act of domestic terrorism.
Act of domestic terrorism? Did she blow something up? Did she try to kill anybody? Did she hurt anybody? She didn't try to run anybody down.
What happened?
It's a wild framing, calling what she did domestic terrorism. Sort of like when Trump said that guy was lucky to escape with his life. That's a little bit hyperbolic, I would say.
It was our ICE officers were out in an enforcement action. They got stuck in the snow because of the adverse weather that is in Minneapolis. They were attempting to.
Stuck in the snow? There was no fucking snow. There was no snow on the ground. I mean, yeah, we have snow on the ground, but it's been in the 30s. So they didn't get stuck in the snow. It didn't happen.
Attempting to push out their vehicle, and a woman attacked them. And those.
She didn't attack him. I mean, what is she watching that we're not watching?
Those surrounding them and attempted.
So the other side would say, well, when she's driving, that was an attack, is what they're going to say. Oh, she hit the gas and her intent was to hit him. Or even if it wasn't to hit him, the officer doesn't know that, so he's just, everything he does is fine from there. And legally, he will probably be able to say that. But just as a human being, I think there's just other ways to handle it.
To run them over and ram them with her vehicle. An officer.
Is this AI? I mean, this looks like it's AI.
Of ours acted quickly and defensively shot to protect himself and the people around him.
This is not what she should say. There's another dude who's like, what's the other guy's name?
And again, everyone, the people more defending the agent, it's, if this was an attack on the woman, from the woman to the ICE agent, what do you call it when you see all these videos of the ICE agents hitting civilians with their car? What is that? Is that not also an attack? Is that not also an attempted murder? What would you call it? If you call the first one an attempted murder, to be consistent, you'd at least have to think about it in the other angles too, when the ICE agents do it to people.
This is not how you do it, folks. This is not what a leader says at a time like this.
And my understanding is that she was hit and is deceased. We're continuing to gather more information, but this goes to show the assaults that our ICE officers and our law enforcement are under every single day. These vehicle rammings are domestic acts.
There was no vehicle ramming here whatsoever.
Domestic acts of terrorism. We're working with the Department of Justice to prosecute them as such. We will continue to protect our ICE officers.
Unbelievable. I can't believe she's got a job.
And so again, I wouldn't even characterize that as a vehicle ramming. To me, at most, it was a vehicle grazing. That's what it seemed like.
Quite honestly, look at that fucking hat. I mean, she's cute and everything. She's kind of pretty, but I think she's got a little too much Botox. So Tom Holman, the border czar, sat down with Anderson Cooper. This is how you talk about this stuff. Not the way Christina, it's an act of domestic terrorism. It is, she tried to kill him, and the officer was acting in self-defense. And, so you're not holding anybody accountable. You're not being a measured response. Let's hear what Tom Holman has to say.
We had an incident in Minneapolis. According to the Department of Homeland Security, a woman attempted to weaponize her vehicle. That's a quote, ram an agent, run over an agent. The department's called it an act of domestic terrorism. Open fire, that woman is dead this evening. Many Americans are watching videos of this incident online, and they're seeing something different than what the department is describing. I'd like to show you one of those videos so you can talk directly to Americans tonight about what they're seeing.
And sadly, I was right. There has been bloodshed. There's been attacks on ICE officers, there have been people killed, even our detainees were killed here in Dallas.
Yeah.
The investigation's ongoing. There's a lot of video, a lot of evidence hasn't been seen yet. I'm not a forensics expert, and neither are the people and members of Congress commenting on this. The auditors hold their judgment. Take a deep breath, hold their judgment, because I think the comments about murder is going to incite what? More.
And this is where the law is annoying, where legally, yeah, they'll be able to say there was just self-defense. But as a human, to me, that is an extreme overreaction by him. He called her a fucking bitch right afterwards as well. He did do that too. So it just doesn't seem like it was handled in the best way. Even if it's quote unquote legal, there's a lot of things that are quote unquote legal that are absolutely out of control. And there's things that are illegal that absolutely shouldn't be.
More violence, more threats, and hopefully not more bloodshed.
And I want to get into that. I want to get into the increase in violence and threats against ICE officers, but I also want to linger for a moment on this incident because it's a really important one. I think the city of Minneapolis is on edge. I think the country is on edge.
Suffice to say, I'm not going to play this whole thing. You guys have probably already seen this anyway. But Holman says, look, there's an ongoing investigation. Let's wait till everything comes out. Instead of, being Mr. Partisan like Kristi Noem is and going off like this. At the end of the day, a woman lost her life. And why did she lose her life? She lost her life standing up for what she believed in, and going against ICE. We have to have more measure in our responses. We just do. And I get that ICE has a tough job. Anybody in law enforcement has a tough job, period, plain and simple. The use of force is something that is entrusted to a few people, and they have to have the training necessary. I could honestly see, Trump's administration is going to prosecute him for anything, for sure. But Keith Ellison, our attorney general here in Minnesota, who was a former congressman and a former defense lawyer, I actually knew him when he was a practicing lawyer. We went up against each other in cases. But he is not a I would bet that there is going to be a situation where they might put this in front of a grand jury. And that's where it belongs, because you have the grand jury decide whether there was probable cause to charge somebody. That should happen here, and I bet it will. So in my closing thoughts, my heart goes out to this Renee Good's family. They lost a sister, a mother, a daughter, and sounds like she was a good woman by all accounts, unarmed. And the rhetoric that you hear from the White House and from Kristi Noem is just not true. She didn't do what she was accused of doing. She didn't run somebody down. She waved one guy through, and then she was trying to leave. Or actually, she delayed in leaving, and they told her to get out of the car. And then she tried to leave. So, but they had her license plate number. They could have just let her go. And if somebody does that, I am totally against police chases. At this day and age, there's no reason for it. You got a description of the person.
And so again, part of what I think about these situations is when you take a big step back, like if someone else has a firearm as well, then I'm way more for people using lethal force. Or if it's uncertain and someone you're not sure has a firearm, yeah, sometimes it is you or them. And sometimes the cops may choose wrong. But I can understand more in that case. In this case, it just seems like why do that? Why do that? That's kind of what I think. Like, live to fight. Have you both lived to fight another day? You know where she is. Arrest her, charge her with that whatever felony.
Person driving, you got their license plate number. You can just post up at their house when they're and issue a warrant. But cops have a tough job, period. Plain and simple. And now the local police, what do they do with this ICE presence? I mean, that's complicated. How do you balance what ICE is trying to do and what the role of the Minneapolis police is here? I don't have an answer for you on that because that's above my pay grade. So we'll just keep.
And here's the other thing. My thoughts on immigration are you need to have an enforced border, right? You can't just have a free-for-all. That's true too. So I'm for enforcement. You can certainly argue the method of enforcement though. But like I said, I think what they should be doing is cracking down on the employers. You do that, to me, that solves more of the problem. A lot of this other stuff seems to be more of a show. It's just more of a show to seem like, oh, you see, we're doing something. But if you really want to stop it, crack down on the employers. You do that, you take away their incentive to come here. Other things that would take away their incentive to come here is if you didn't give people free healthcare or for other like big benefits. I wouldn't necessarily be the biggest fan of that either.
Following up on this stuff as it happens, And hopefully the city doesn't burn like it did during the George Floyd days. So we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, your board certified criminal defense lawyer. Make sure you subscribe.
All right. We got through Bruce. I guess there's so many people talking about this tonight that not as many people are in my chat.
Grande. Today, I will analyze the case of Renee Good. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the incident, then offer my analysis. Renee Nicole Good was born in 1988 and was raised in Colorado Springs, Colorado. She married a man named Timmy Ray Macklin and moved to Kansas. They had a son together sometime around 2019. In 2020, Renee graduated with a bachelor's degree in English. On May 25, 2023, her husband Timmy died at the age of 36. His obituary did not mention Renee, so it's not clear what the relationship status was at the time of his death. Renee moved to Minneapolis, Minnesota, and lived with her son and her partner, Rebecca Good. At one time, the women operated a household repair and maintenance business and briefly moved to Canada, supposedly due to their displeasure with Donald Trump being elected president.
Wait a minute. Dr. Grande is a Brit? That's the first I've heard of that. He doesn't have an English accent in any way. I guess he has English or British ancestry.
Now moving to the timeline of the incident. On January 7, 2026, 37-year-old Renee Good was operating her red Honda Pilot SUV in the central neighborhood of Minneapolis. She pulled sideways across Portland Avenue between East 33rd and East 34th Street, apparently in an effort to disrupt the activities of ICE agents who were operating in the area. The agents were trying to remove a vehicle which had become stuck in the snow. 4 ICE agents in 2 vehicles pulled up to Renee's position as she continued to partially obstruct the street. Renee waved the agents to pass her vehicle, and there was enough room for them to get by. One agent, who I will refer to as John Doe, can be seen walking along the passenger side of Renee's SUV toward the front. He appeared to be recording with a cell phone. A woman who was following him was also recording with a cell phone. John Doe eventually made his way in front of Renee's SUV. 2 agents exited a gray Nissan Titan and approached the Honda Pilot. One agent told Renee to drive away from the scene, while the other yelled, "Get out of the blanking car." An agent grabbed the driver's side door handle with his right hand and reached his left hand through the open window. Right before he did this, Renee put her Honda Pilot in reverse. As the agent was touching her vehicle, she backed up a few feet with the front wheels turned to the left. She then put the vehicle in drive and pulled forward, turning the front wheels to the right. By this time, John Doe had walked in front of the Honda Pilot. He retrieved his service pistol with his right hand, pointed the weapon at Renee, and fired 3 times. At least 1 bullet traveled through the windshield. Renee's Honda.
So, like that one agent who's grabbing her door, he's trying to tell her to get out. And he's just like yanking on the door. And that can be a pretty scary thing, right? And I think the woman panicked a little bit. I think that's part of it too.
The Pilot rolled down the street and collided with a white Honda Accord and a light pole. Renee was transported to a hospital where she was pronounced dead. At least one of the gunshots fired by John Doe had struck her in the head. John Doe was taken to a hospital, treated, and released. At the time I'm making this video, the incident is under investigation. Now moving to my analysis. The fatal shooting of Renee Good is highly controversial and has led to multiple protests around the country. Not surprisingly, opinions on the case are largely divided along party lines. Homeland Security has labeled the incident as an act of domestic terrorism, putting the blame on Renee Good. Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary, said that Renee was harassing, stalking, and impeding agents. The agents repeatedly instructed her to get out of her vehicle and stop obstructing law enforcement, but she did not comply. Kristi said, quote, "Our officer followed his training, did exactly what he's been taught to do in that situation, and took actions to defend himself and defend his fellow law enforcement officers," unquote. In a post on social media, Donald Trump claimed that Renee was very disorderly, obstructing, and resisting. She violently, willfully, and viciously ran over an ICE officer who, quote, seems to have shot her in self-defense, unquote. He indicated that it was hard to believe John Doe was alive. Trump blamed the situation on the radical left. Not everybody agrees with the characterization that Renee was at fault. The mayor of Minneapolis referred to the self-defense claim as bull blank, and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz told people not to believe the DHS propaganda machine about the shooting. Some people believe that John Doe should be criminally charged. They believe he violated DHS policy, which states that the use of deadly force by an officer must be objectively reasonable in light of the facts and circumstances. The officer must have a reasonable belief that the subject of the force poses an imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury. This brings me to the question, is John Doe guilty of some type of crime, like murder or manslaughter? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea he is guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. There is no question that John Doe shot and killed Renee Good. There have been no reports about Renee being armed, although a vehicle can be considered a deadly weapon under certain circumstances. When looking at the video of the shooting frame by frame, it appears as though John Doe was standing near the driver's side headlight of the Honda Pilot. By turning the wheel to the right and proceeding forward, Renee was not aiming directly at John Doe. It appeared as though she was just trying to get away. In video recorded from another angle, it looks like the vehicle may have come in contact with John Doe, but it did not run him over. This was more of a glancing blow.
Yeah, and I think at most it was a glancing graze thing, not like a thud running over. No.
If any contact occurred. By the time John Doe discharged his weapon, any threat that Renee may have posed had already ended. Furthermore, a woman was standing behind the SUV, and a fellow officer was not clear of the area either. John Doe risked the lives of innocent people to kill someone who was not an imminent threat. He did not appear to be injured. He could be seen walking away from the scene. During the incident, Renee was issued conflicting commands by the officers. One told her to drive away, and the other told her to exit her vehicle. John Doe had a responsibility to appreciate the confusion that Renee may have experienced by these conflicting orders. He should have realized that Renee was only trying to leave.
And I agree with that part. When there's conflicting orders there, it does make things confusing. And when there's confusion, like at that point, you should be a little less likely to use lethal force, in my opinion. So, again, it just doesn't seem like there was much like thought about those things. It's just very reactionary.
Now moving to the exculpatory factors. Renee Good was harassing law enforcement officers prior to the shooting. For instance, she obstructed the operation of their vehicles with her vehicle. As she was backing up, one agent had both his hands on her vehicle, trying to gain access. It should have been clear to Renee that she was being detained.
Yeah, and that's what the agent here is doing. So in the car, telling her to get out. She doesn't listen.
Despite hearing the other instruction to drive away. When Renee put her vehicle in drive and pulled forward, she could see John Doe standing.
The confusion is when other people are telling her to drive away. That's the confusion. And again, they're going to say this was certainly an attempted murder by the woman, an imminent threat. But looking at it, it's just like, was it really that? Was it really that like dangerous? Like he easily got out of the way is my whole thing. So he'll probably not get any kind of legal charges, but totally unnecessary to me.
Near the front driver's side of her vehicle. He was not in a position to see her front wheels. He did not know that they were turned to the right. When Renee moved forward, John Doe could have reasonably assumed that he was going to be struck with the vehicle. Renee should have known that driving forward represented an assault against an officer, and he could use deadly force to protect himself. When considering all the evidence in this case, do I believe
when people's guns are drawn and people are screaming and shouting all over you, that causes confusion. It just does. To say otherwise is disingenuous.
That John Doe is guilty of some type of criminal offense like murder or manslaughter? In my opinion, no. John Doe is not guilty of any crime beyond a reasonable doubt.
And he did very easily get out of the way. and pulled out his weapon and successfully got rid of her. That's what he did. He did all of that. So it's like you were able to do all of that and you still thought your life was in danger. To me, it's just, I don't know.
The problem with prosecuting John Doe is that when Renee moved her vehicle toward him, she committed assault. She put him in a situation where he could be justified in shooting in self-defense, and he took advantage of this opportunity. John Doe was out of danger when he fired his weapon, but with everything happening so fast, he has a plausible defense. Again, he did not know that Renee's front wheels were turned to the right. If there was a criminal trial, the jury would have to consider the speed at which the incident occurred and what John Doe knew at the time. He did not have the benefit of experiencing the event in slow motion. He could not replay a video frame by frame hundreds of times. He only had a split second to make his decision. I believe he made the wrong decision and killed someone who did not need to be killed. But making the wrong decision is not always criminal. What do I think happened in this case?
And that's how I see it too. I think he made the wrong decision, but I don't think he's going to get in any trouble for it. I think there's other ways it could have gone down for sure. He didn't have to go instantly to that. That's why I think it was the wrong decision. And I think just ultimately you want to hold off on using lethal force unless it's absolutely necessary. Now, the people who don't agree with me will say, well, he had no choice. It was clear the car's coming right at him and he had to do that. I don't see it that way, but like I said, I don't think he's going to be criminally liable.
This is just a theory, my opinion. Renee Good was heavily invested in politics. She was not happy with Donald Trump or the policies of his administration. In particular, she was...
And so, clever girl, then also, when the ICE agents are hitting more directly the civilians with their cars, is that also attempted murder? And if so, we better get on the police and get those ICE agents arrested for attempted murder.
was offended that Trump would order the removal of illegal immigrants from the state of Minnesota. Renee had many available options to protest lawfully, but she chose to unlawfully harass ICE agents operating in Minneapolis. The problem for Renee was that ICE agents...
The thing is, when he makes a wrong decision, someone's life is ended. And so to me, decisions that end someone's life when they're the person that's done it require some scrutiny. And again, no one's saying she didn't also make a wrong decision.
Don't make policy. She was attacking at the wrong level. This was a no-win scenario. Nothing that Renee did was going to change anything, but this made her feel like she was standing up against the forces of evil. She believed her actions would help keep illegal immigrants in Minnesota. The only thing Renee accomplished was putting her own life in danger. When Renee was approached by ICE agents and ordered to exit her vehicle, she decided to flee instead of complying with the command. She pulled forward when John Doe was right in front of her vehicle, which prompted him to kill her. The shooting was right on the line as far as being justified. The ambiguous circumstances are such that reasonable people can have different conclusions about the justification. This is a recipe for disaster. Each political side feels like they were victimized. For the right, Renee's behavior was an attack on an officer just trying to do his job. For the left, Renee was a victim of an overzealous officer who was eager to make an example out of a protester. In the end, this story will be forgotten. It will be replaced by other tragedies. But Renee will still be dead. Whether she was right or wrong from a political point of view, Renee should have asked herself if what she was doing was worth dying for. Now moving to my final thoughts. Sometimes people just want to fight. They're always in a state of anger. They're not happy with the way things are, and they want someone to pay for that. It doesn't matter who. It doesn't matter if their target is the one responsible for the situation. They just want to cause suffering. They believe that somehow this suffering will lead to change, or at least it will make them feel better. It will make them feel like a person who is contributing to society in some meaningful way. Sometimes when they go out and demand the payment, they select the wrong person, an individual who is also willing to stand up for what they believe. Those are my thoughts on the case of Renee Good. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon.
So who next?
Grande. Today,
Megyn Kelly. Matt Walsh, a leftist. Who should it be? Yeah, and I'm more of an independent too. But the thing is, when you're an independent, you get everybody hating you because there's a lot of people, unless you see it exactly as they see it, they can't stand it. Ha! Andrew Wilson's your favorite. Let's see what old Matty Walsh has to say. How about the angry cop? He's in there too. But we all know what he's going to say.
They told you America invented slavery.
Directly at an ICE officer, some guy shouts, "Dude, you did a murder." Yes, dude, you did a murder. That's how these imbeciles speak. We're now trending very clearly towards a particularly brutal war that seemed unthinkable until recently. It's increasingly evident that millions of people living in this country are so committed to an explicitly anti-American post-national ideology that they cannot be reasoned with. Video evidence means nothing to them. They're not interested in logic or laws or decency. And in some cases, they don't even care about self-preservation. Their primary belief system revolves around a mixture of nihilism, irony, ghoulishness, and intense jealousy and insecurity. And these millions of people are well represented in government. They're represented by politicians who are now openly threatening that they will start a new civil war over the fact that the Trump administration is enforcing immigration laws that were passed in a free and open democratic fashion. And those politicians include Tim Walz, who's obviously eager to distract from his involvement in a generational scheme to defraud taxpayers out of hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, in a moment, we'll get into the specifics of the shooting involving the ICE officer and the professional agitator who tried to run him over. We will demonstrate beyond any doubt whatsoever that the ICE officer was fully justified in shooting and killing this woman. But it's important at the outset to reject the framing that the left and much of the corporate press is attempting to establish here. So let me say it outright. Even if all of their lies were true, which they aren't, even if an ICE officer had somehow decided one day, for no reason, to brutally murder somebody on camera, there would still be no justifiable reason whatsoever for politicians to talk the way they're talking now in the Democrat Party, from Minnesota to Washington. There would be no justifiable reason to foment an insurrection against the United States of America in response to something like that. There'd be no reason for a politician like Tim Walz to imply that his state is now at war with the federal government and to suggest, as he did yesterday, that the National Guard might be ordered to defy or even attack officers of the federal government. Watch.
Look, I don't know. I don't think any governor in history has had to fight a war against the federal government every single day.
Well, I said this yesterday. We've never been at war with our federal government. Order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard. We have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary. I remind you, a warning order is a heads up for folks. And these National Guard troops are our National Guard troops. They're teachers in your community. They're business owners. They're construction professionals. They are Minnesotans. Minnesota will not allow our community to be used as a prop in a national political fight. We will not take the bait. We will continue to update you, Minnesota, as we get more information.
Yeah, by the way, just a quick historical note. He said that no governor in history has fought a war against the federal government. What? The Civil War? Have you heard of that? That happened. And it seems like he wants another one now. So what does it take for the DOJ to haul this guy away in handcuffs? You know, this is the most crooked, corrupt, one of the most crooked and corrupt public officials we've seen in modern American history.
I think also what he's alluding to is the Minnesota fraud thing here too, that we went over the other day. the Nikki Shirley video.
I mean, fresh off of scamming the taxpayer, he's now declaring war against the United States government. He should not be a free man at this point. Okay, he should be frog marched in shackles in front of cameras. He should be looking at charges for insurrection and treason. There's no need to read between the lines here. The implication is obvious.
So here's the thing. I haven't done any polls about people's opinion on this issue yet. So here's the opinion question. 1, ICE agent was completely in the wrong and should be charged. 2, no, not charged in any way, but probably should have acted differently. He'll be innocent, but should have acted differently. Or 3, what's the other? Completely justified. Would that be all the options there, or am I missing something? Or the third option would be no, he's guilty of actually a crime. So let's repeat that again. 1, he's not guilty of any crime. 2, he's guilty of a crime. 3, not guilty of a crime, but should have acted a little bit differently. So those are the choices. 1, 2, 3.
Tim Walz is deliberately laying the groundwork for a scenario in which the Minnesota National Guard will fire upon ICE officers or vice versa. Will he give the order himself? Probably not. But Tim Walz understands that in general, when you put the National Guard on the street and order them to undermine ICE in defiance of the Constitution, then the likelihood of a catastrophic incident, a modern Boston massacre situation, becomes very, very high. And that's what he wants. Very clearly. The strategy Walz is using is very familiar to left-wing terrorists. The entire reason that this lesbian poet was stalking ICE agents yesterday and blocking their vehicles by stopping in the middle of the road was that she wanted a confrontation. She wanted her partner, quote unquote, or whoever it was, to film everything. She was desperately trying to get a reaction out of ICE so that she could present them as fascists and upload the footage all over the internet. There's no other reason why you would park your car perpendicular in the middle of the road. And that's been their strategy for months now. Usually they stand in front of ICE vehicles and try to block their access to detention facilities. We've seen this all the time. Walz is applying this strategy on a much broader scale. He's being transparently phony about his motivations when he praises the National Guard in that clip. He doesn't mean a word of what he's saying. As Mike Cernovich pointed out during the BLM riots, which Democrats, of course, encouraged and endorsed. And
so what makes this situation a little bit different is it's ICE agents, not police. So the protocol for ICE might be a little bit different than the protocol for police. And it just makes it a little more difficult to analyze, if you ask me.
Facilitated and funded. Walz openly mocked the Minnesota National Guard, saying they're poorly trained and useless. Watch.
The mayor knew what he was asking for. He wanted the National Guard. And what does that mean? I think to the mayor, yes, I think it's a perception. I'm certainly not quite.
So this guy's a conservative. He's part of Daily Wire. I'm only playing this to play all the sides. I'll play a conservative. I'll play more of a lefty person next. And we'll take it from there.
Questioning that, I think the mayor said I request the National Guard. Whew, I'm out. This is great. We're going to have massively trained troops. No, you're going to have 19-year-olds who are cooks.
Walz's views of the Minnesota National Guard haven't changed, right? What's changed is that in 2026, he's hoping that one of these National Guardsmen, who he says he thinks are not well trained and not reliable, he hopes that one of them will take a shot at an ICE agent or try to run one over or something along those lines. And that would enable Democrats to launch a domestic color revolution on an even greater.
And the reason I listen to all sides is I truly think you can't defeat arguments unless you know that side's arguments. So you have to hear all the perspectives. And I can do that. I can hear all the perspectives. And then I take all the information in and I see what I think from there. Now, of course, it's probably important to be open-minded about some of the stuff too, right? If you're not open-minded, it can be a little more difficult to learn. And we all have our biases too, right? There's all certain circumstances where it's going to be more difficult for us to be open-minded in certain things. To me, that's part of being human.
Scale than what we saw in 2020. Now, make no mistake, if an ICE officer had been murdered yesterday, every single one of these people would be celebrating right now, just as they celebrated
I don't necessarily know about that. I think there could be a small faction of some, like the some that did with Charlie Kirk. But there's a lot of people that would say, actually, you know what? No. Now the Trump administration is going to use this as an excuse to use even more force in what they do and crack down even harder. I think there would have been a fair amount of people thinking that too.
Assassination of the healthcare CEO, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, the multiple assassination attempts on Trump. They're not remotely upset that this person died. They're thrilled about it. They think they can use her death for their own political gain. And, they're not going to stop with this one lesbian agitator who they're now calling a legal observer.
Bit antagonistic of him to keep on referring to her as a lesbian agitator.
Make her sound like a UN monitor in some third world war zone. But she wasn't a legal observer, whatever the hell that is. She was intentionally obstructing ICE, according to eyewitnesses. Watch.
They clearly wanted her out of there because she was the main car leading the protest, is my understanding. I talked to another guy who was driving behind her, but she was very successful in blocking traffic. She was doing what she was set out to do, and so they wanted to get her the hell out of there. Yeah.
So it looked like she was impeding ICE vehicles.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
That was her goal.
So what was actually happening here was, this was not a mom running errands. This was not someone dropping her child off at school. She was trying to stage an illegal blockade of the road to interfere with ICE agents. Okay, and that which is like a serious crime already. I know this comes as a shock to left-wing activists who just do whatever the hell they want all the time, especially blocking traffic. They do this. This is the anti-ICE activists do it, the BLM, climate change. They love doing this. But you're actually not allowed to do that. Not only are you not allowed to do that, that's a serious crime. To just say, I'm going to block the road. I'm going to blockade this road. Doesn't matter if they're federal agents trying to enforce federal laws. There could be.
And so just notice, right? When you compare and contrast Dr. Grande, Bruce, and now him, listen to the differences in how they describe the same situation. Listen to how definitive Matt Walsh is about certain things that the other, especially Dr. Grande, was not. So it's just something to pay attention to.
An ambulance with someone in a medical emergency. It could be all kinds of things. But you know what? Because I want to, I'm going to block the road. And that's what she decided to do. And they tried to go and detain her for it, which, of course, because you're committing a serious crime. And then she rammed her car into one of them when they attempted to apprehend her. That's what happened. Now, by now, you've probably seen many different angles of the shooting on Wednesday. We'll start with the first clip that everybody saw, which isn't really remarkable because of the shooting, but because of how utterly and completely annoying all of the bystanders are. I mean, Reddit must have been having some kind of convention on the sidewalk during the shooting. That's the only way to explain this. Watch and listen if you can muster.
Get the f*** out of our neighborhood!
So this is the wife's video. This is the wife's video, I think, that the people were requesting in the chat. This is it. So look at how fast that happened. Let's watch it again.
What? Dude! What the f***?
I'm sorry, but that was just considering, it's like seeing the more perspective. It's like, this doesn't seem like it had to happen that way.
Dude, you did a murder for what?
So they're hounding the ICE agents the whole time. They're spitting on them. And then after the woman is shot while driving directly at an ICE officer, some guy shouts, "Dude, you did a murder." Yes, dude, you did a murder. That's how these imbeciles speak.
So that was the first video you ever seen of it. So apparently that's not the wife's video. Then I don't think I've ever seen the wife's video. Is it even out?
Not even capable of sounding like normal people. They've spent so much time online racking up tons of Reddit points. They might as well be speaking a different language at this point. And they're doing all this supposedly to protect foreigners who are breaking our laws and in many cases stealing our money.
Get the f- out of our neighborhood. Out car. Out car.
So let's look it up. So Claire, you have to give me a name and a link because I don't know where it is. Oh. I disconnected it again.
The whole time they're spitting on them. And then after the woman is shot while driving directly at an ICE officer, some guy shouts, "Dude, you did a murder." Yes, dude, you did a murder. That's how these imbeciles speak. Not even capable of sounding like normal people. They've spent so much time online racking up tons of Reddit points. They might as well be speaking a different language at this point. And they're doing all this supposedly to protect foreigners who are breaking our laws and in many cases stealing our money. I mean, they're doing all this specifically in Minnesota to protect Somali scammers. Okay, this woman gave her life in the commission of a crime to protect 68 IQ Somali scammers who, by the way, couldn't give less of a damn about her. You notice when you see all these like protests now and riots and the vigils and everything, you notice how the Somali community is not showing up en masse? You notice how they're not showing up? You know why? Because they don't care. They don't care at all. All of you idiots that are flooding the streets to protect scam artists who are stealing money from you, the Somali community, they're not even going to say thank you. They won't even show up at your candlelight vigil. Guess what? Because they don't care. In any event, very quickly, more videos came out, which made it even more clear that this was self-defense. And this one, shot by someone on the scene and put in slow-mo by Colin Wright, is one of the best ways to visualize what happened. And you can see it here. We'll put it up on the screen. And as Colin points out, quote, "The car is in drive and the woman steps on the gas while the wheels are turned."
So look, let's rewind it real quick. This is an important one. Let's slow it down. Nah, let's not slow it down.
What happened. And you can see it here. We'll put it up on the screen. And as Colin points out, quote,
"So car's in reverse. He's in front of her right here. Two of them. The guy who does the shootings in front right now.
The car is in drive and the woman's..."
So now she stopped.
Steps on the gas
And she steps
while the
on
wheels are turned to
So that's him pulling out the weapon there.
the left.
And to me, at this very moment, like he's like mostly clear from the situation. Like he's where he is. You can just continue walking to his right. And I think you're completely out of danger.
And you can see right there. Up there it is. Going right at the guy.
I don't know. The right of the guy framing, I'm not so sure about. But again, they're going to use that in court as he was in fear for his life.
Because the ground is frozen, the tires have no traction, and they spin in place. Had there been no ice, the car very likely would have head-on struck the officer standing in front of the vehicle. That's Colin Wright's description, which is true. And indeed, from another angle, you can clearly see that the car did, in fact, strike the officer in a glancing blow that physically moves his body. And we'll show that angle here now. And keep in mind, as you watch this footage, that we're only seeing it because of X. I mean, if it weren't for X, this would be another Michael Brown, hands up, don't shoot type of thing. It would be another George Floyd, which it might be. I mean, they're trying to turn it into that. But it'd be yet another case where a mob forms around the body, concocts a false narrative, and burns down entire cities. And to the extent that we may be able to pull back from the brink here, which remains to be seen, it's because the public, if they know where to look, has access to this footage. And they can share it without getting banned for spreading Russian disinformation or whatever. Now, to be clear, under the law, as well as common sense, law enforcement officers have every right to shoot and kill you if you ignore their orders to stop and drive a 2-ton automobile towards them. You know, when officers don't react with lethal force in this scenario, they often end up like this. Watch.
Turn off the car.
No.
299, she's fleeing. Get out of the car! Get out of the car! Get out of the car! No! 299, she almost struck me. Get out of the car! Shots fired!
Now, just the past year, there have been more than 100 incidents where criminals and vehicles have targeted ICE and Border Patrol agents. A few months ago in Chicago, an ICE officer was dragged under a vehicle. In December, 2 ICE agents were hit by a car. It's because
He's trying to compare and contrast other things that have happened. So let's see, it was called ICE shooting side-by-side video. Side-by-side video shooting of an iPhone.
After the deadly shooting of a woman by an ICE agent. This was yesterday morning. The woman killed was 37-year-old Renee Good. She is said to have had 3 children. The Minneapolis City Council has confirmed that she was a resident of the city. Good, we know, was driving a car about 9:30 yesterday in South Minneapolis. This was near 34th and Portland Avenue. Federal officials say she was trying to run over ICE agents, so one of them fired 3 shots in self-defense, killing her. State and city elected leaders dispute that account. Witnesses captured video of what happened.
And the officer, the agent that did do this, he did have an incident a couple months ago where he was dragged. But I would say if you're really that impacted by that incident still, where you're going to be very trigger happy in the present, probably shouldn't be on the job.
As they were hearing and seeing what was all going down on Portland Avenue.
And that is one angle of the shooting. And here's another one from a different angle, which President Trump had referenced when posting to social media yesterday, showing the situation from the front of the vehicle. Again, here is a look at both angles side by side. First, in real time here. You're watching it. We will also front of the vehicle. Again, here is a look at both angles side by.
So both angles side by side. Where is he? He's here?
Side.
So there he is here. And there he is behind him here. but you just can't tell. Like this angle to the right here is so far away and is blurry.
First, in real time here, you're watching it. We will also slow it down. And we are doing this to give you both views because in the back angle, it's unclear if that agent was hit by the car. In the front angle, it does seem to show some contact. Federal agents say the agent, quote, feared for his life.
So it looks like he backs up there, and it's very difficult to tell if it's because he was grazed or he's just backing up to avoid it. He could easily have been grazed, right? And of course they're going to say definitely in fear for his life for the legality purposes.
And was following training. Witnesses are disputing that, saying Good was trying to leave, turn around, and leave the area when she was fatally shot. Back at the scene of that deadly shooting, the memorial has been growing for the victim.
Our Bill Keller joins us there live now with what is happening right now. We know, Bill, probably some people are coming out to show their respects this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning. In fact, what you can see behind me, there is this makeshift barricade that's been set up. It's blocking off Portland, prohibiting cars from driving past the scene. But take a look at this video that shows the growing memorial on the other end of this block where 37-year-old Renee Good was shot and killed by a federal ICE agent. It was fairly quiet overnight, but we are starting to see more people. They're coming out to pay their respects. Most really standing in silence, kind of reflecting on what happened near 34th and Portland less than 24 hours ago.
It's so crazy. All of these people who hated cops, hated the police, loved their First Amendment rights, thought that the government was too strong. There's such sucks for everything having to do with this administration. First, whether she's trying to run over the officer or not isn't relevant to the analysis. Second, even if she is running away, she's fleeing at high speed in a community and becomes a danger to the community. I didn't know you could get assassinated for speeding. Are there signs in Minnesota that say that? Cops might snipe? Is that a thing in Minnesota? It might be. I've only been to Minneapolis a couple of times. I don't remember seeing those signs there. Maybe it is. Third, back to the analysis. Is the officer who fired reasonably in fear of serious bodily harm? You can't put yourself in the way of serious bodily harm and then use that as a justification for self-defense. Legally, that doesn't even work. It's a Honda Pilot on a wet street. How fast is she going? Is this Ford v Ferrari? What the is happening out here? It's so crazy. All of these people who hated cops, hated the police, loved their First Amendment rights, thought that the government was too strong. There's such sucks for everything having to do with this administration. First, whether she's trying to run over the officer or not isn't relevant to the analysis. Second, even if she is running away, she's fleeing at high speed in a community and becomes a danger to the community. I didn't know you could get assassinated for speeding. Are there signs in Minnesota that say that? Cops might snipe? Is that a thing in Minnesota? It might be. I've only been to Minneapolis a couple of times. I don't remember seeing those signs there. Maybe it is. Third, back to the analysis. Is the officer who fired reasonably in fear of serious bodily harm? You can't put yourself in the way of serious bodily harm and then use that as a justification for self-defense. Legally, that doesn't even work.
Let's see. For people who think he was hit, there is a ton of new angles and footage clearly showing he was not hit and that he walks away with no injuries and leaves after blowing her face off. Yeah, I mean, when the ambulance came, they said there was only one person injured. They didn't even think that he was injured. So you can't forget that part either. Well, let's see what Kyle Klinsky says. Then we'll do maybe the angry cop.
All right, guys, welcome to the show. I got a special show with a whole bunch of breaking news here for you. So right off the jump here, let me point out, we finally have the name of the ICE gangster who shot Renee Good. His name is Jonathan Ross. So what we know as of right now is it appears like he was an Iraq war veteran. He has a wife. It also appears like he allegedly may have a Grindr account that he deleted as soon as his name came out. That one is unconfirmed. It's also possible somebody with the same name who deleted it because he didn't want to get blamed as being that guy. But nonetheless, there's some speculation about that going on out there. We also have an amazing New York Times video that I want to show you here. This video is as objective and neutral as humanly possible, and they come to a very black and white conclusion where I think it's fair to say there's nobody who's reasonable and rational and logical who can honestly come to a different conclusion once you look at the evidence and once you look at the chain of events. So let's take a look at that.
On Wednesday in Minneapolis, a federal agent fatally shot a motorist, 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good.
So this is one that says that he's not hit. So let's hear this one out.
Trump administration officials said these were, quote, defensive shots fired because the officer was being run over.
And a woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over.
But our analysis of bystander footage filmed from different angles.
So this is Kyle Kalinske, Secular Talk channel. He's more of a leftist. Matt Walsh, conservative. Kyle Kalinske, leftist.
Angles appears to show the agent was not in the path of the victim's SUV when he fired 3 shots at close range. Here's how events unfolded. Moments before the shooting, the victim's maroon SUV is stopped in the middle of the street. Multiple unmarked federal vehicles are idling nearby. Secretary Noem alleged the motorist, quote, was blocking the officers in.
And again, there was nothing good she could have been hoping to accomplish with any of this. I don't think she should have fled. She should have gotten out of the car. Yes. But that can be true. And you can think it was excessive for him to do that at the same time, is what I would say.
Bystanders are blowing whistles and yelling at federal agents.
Go home to Texas!
Then, federal vehicles start moving toward the maroon SUV, with sirens and lights blaring. A federal agent films the scene on his phone.
That's the one who does it. And I guess that's her wife filming him from behind there.
The driver rolls forward slightly, turning left, then stops and waves for others to go ahead.
So I should point out, she waves that first car by, and she's also trying to wave the second car by with the ICE thugs in there. And to me, that looks like intent of, look, after you go, I'm going to pull out behind you. I'm trying to leave. But obviously, you know what happens next.
2 agents exit this silver pickup and walk toward the vehicle.
And yeah, she should have gotten out of the car.
Moments later.
All right, so I don't know if you caught that, but she just got contradictory orders. The first ICE agent you see points at, like, get out of here. And then the second one walks up and says, get the fuck out of the car.
So let's make sure that happened. Because if that's what happened, that makes it more confusing.
So
Oh, shit.
Slightly, turning left, then stops and waves for others to go ahead.
So I should point out, she waves that first car by, and she's also trying to wave the second car by with the ICE thugs in there. And to me, that looks like intent of, look, after you go, I'm going to pull out behind you.
So when it plays again, see if you can see an ICE agent waving her by.
I'm trying to leave. But obviously, you know what happens next.
So look for the ICE agent waving her by, along with the one that says, get the F out of the car.
2 agents exit this silver pickup and walk toward the vehicle.
So see the guy in the front. Does the guy in the front wave? Let's see.
Vehicle. Moments later.
All right, so
I don't see what he's talking about.
I don't know if you caught that, but she just got contradictory orders. The first ICE agent you see points at, like, get.
Does he?
Orders.
Was blocking the officers in. Agent films the scene on his phone. The driver rolls forward slightly, exit this silver pickup and walk toward the vehicle.
To me, that looks like intent of, look, after you go, I'm going to pull out behind you. I'm trying to leave. But obviously, you know what happens next.
2 agents exit this silver pickup and walk toward the vehicle.
All right, so I see what he's saying now. He holds up his hand to the left there. But is that telling her to leave? I don't know. I don't know about that.
Moments later.
All right, so I don't know if you caught that, but she just got contradictory orders. The first ICE agent you see points at, like, get out of here. And then the second one walks up and says, get the fuck out of the car. So contradictory orders. And as many people have pointed out, there are many examples of contradictory orders leading to shootings and killings and murder on the part of the law enforcement officials. And there's another classic example of that here. Again, let's keep going.
2 agents exit this silver pickup and walk toward the vehicle.
So when he's pointing to the left there, what is he doing? The other guy, not the guy who's at the door now, but this other guy.
Points at, like, get out of here. And then the second one walks up and says, get the fuck out of the car. So contradictory orders. And as many people have pointed out, there are many examples of contradictory orders leading to shootings and killings and murder on the part of the law enforcement officials. And there's another classic example of that here. Again, let's keep going.
2 agents exit this silver pickup and walk toward the vehicle.
See that first one, what is he pointing at to the left? We don't really know what he's doing there.
Moments later, shots are fired. Let's look at the scene again more closely. This is the agent who shoots the driver. He walks around the car filming and disappears from view. Other agents pull up and order the driver to exit her vehicle. One of them grabs at the door handle and reaches inside. The SUV reverses, then turns right, apparently attempting to leave. At the same time, the agent filming crosses toward the left of the vehicle and grabs his gun. He opens fire on the motorist and continues shooting as she drives past. The moment the agent fires, he is standing here, to the left of the SUV, and the wheels are pointing to the right, away from the agent. This appears to conflict with allegations that the SUV was ramming or about to ram the officer.
Now, by the way, in my mind, that's checkmate. That's game, set, match. It is very clear what happened here. The other point many people are making is in a court of law, you would have to make the argument that not only do you think you were justified in that first shot, but shot number 2 and 3 as well. The ones where the thug is on the side of her, shooting through the side window. Okay? You also would have to justify that in court. And obviously, they can't. So that's why we have people or attorneys who have defended officers involved in shootings in the past.
Like I've been saying, I think he's not going to get in any trouble for it. But just as a human, it just seems like it was so unnecessary to jump straight to that. As a human that doesn't want to have to do that. Like if I was that ICE agent in that very spot, would I think my life was in danger there? I don't think so. Like not from that distance. It's not like you're getting like a 50-yard head start and you're going to like get boom. Like, I don't know.
They've come forward and said, if I was this person's attorney, I would say, take a plea deal for anything less than life in prison. Because they got you. They got you. It's really that simple. Now, of course, all of this is why the FBI and the Trump regime are now involved in a cover-up and they're refusing to cooperate with state and local authorities. They are protecting their gangster criminal murderer.
President Trump and others said the federal agent was hit by the SUV, often pointing to another video filmed from a different angle. And it's true that at this moment in this grainy low-resolution footage, it does look like the agent is being struck by the SUV. But when we synchronize it with the first clip, we can see the agent is not being run over.
Let's see, make sure.
President Trump and others said the federal agent was hit by the SUV, often pointing to another video filmed from a different angle. And it's true that at this moment in this grainy low-resolution footage, it does look like the agent is being struck by the SUV.
But this is the synchronized from this view saying he wasn't hit.
When we synchronize it with the first clip, we can see the agent is not being run over. In fact, his feet are positioned away from the SUV. The SUV crashes into a white car parked down the road.
What the?
A bystander runs toward the collision. The federal agents on scene do not appear to rush to provide emergency medical care.
Now, what you're about to hear here is absolutely devastating and damning. And again, these next two facts are just completely and utterly mind-boggling. And it's a reminder that we're not dealing with trained professionals here. We're dealing with Trump's Gestapo. We're dealing with a gang of criminals. We're dealing with people who have a long rap sheet and then they join ICE. We're dealing with people who are part of white nationalist groups and the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. That's who we're dealing with here. Listen to this.
Eventually, the agent who shot the motorist approaches the vehicle. Seconds later, he turns back around and tells his colleagues to call 911.
Shame! You shot someone! You shot someone!
Agents block several bystanders who attempt to provide medical care, including one who identifies himself as a physician.
Can I go check a pulse? No! Back up! Now! I'm a physician! I don't care.
Can I go check a pulse? No. I'm a physician. I don't care. How's that going to look in court? When you're literally blocking medical attention, which is absolutely necessary. How's that going to look in court? The reality is, I think, that they knew she was dead. They knew that she was murdered. And so they didn't know what to do. They were panicking, trying to protect their own asses. But wait, it gets worse. It gets worse. It gets worse than blocking a doctor. Ready? Listen.
At the same time, several agents, including the agent who opened fire, get in their vehicles and drive off, apparently altering the active crime scene.
They fled an active crime scene. They committed murder, blocked a doctor from helping, and fled the scene.
So we've heard two angles now. Notice how completely different this angle is from Matt Walsh's angle, right?
This is the most open and shut case I think I've ever seen. This is right up there with, there's been some cases in the past of officer violence in particular, where there was like a guy kneeling with his hands up, and it's literally all on video, and he shoots and murders him. There's another one with a guy in a red shirt, a black guy in a red shirt, running away from an officer. The officer slowly takes out his gun and shoots him in the back as he's running away. There's a few examples of cases that are like, oh my God, it's a foregone conclusion. Even though the American public looks at law enforcement usually with reverence and they give them more leeway than they do other people, right? In this instance, man, this is as open and shut as it could possibly be. And literally before her body was cold, the Trump regime thugs were saying she's a domestic terrorist.
So between Matt Walsh and Kyle Kulinski here, I'm in the middle of them. I'm more like with Dr. Grande's line of thinking. But you can see Kyle Kulinski here goes with one extreme. Matt Walsh is the other extreme. And depending on what side someone's on, they're more likely to agree with one side or the other.
Based on nothing. Based on nothing. And now they're covering it up and trying to protect this criminal. Just absolutely astonishing stuff. How about this? The reporting just keeps getting worse for ICE. Renee Good's ex-husband told reporters this morning that, number one, Renee was not an activist. So they're lying about that. They're saying she was. She was not. Number two, she was in the vicinity because she had just dropped off her 6-year-old at school. Oh my God. And number three, she was a devoted Christian and stay-at-home mom. Now, let me just say for the record here, even if she wasn't a Christian and even if she was an activist, that does not in any way, shape, or form justify murder. That should go without saying. But the point here is they lied about every single one of these things. They lied, and they made it seem like she was like some professional Antifa terrorist activist or something. Total fucking nonsense. Total nonsense. All right. How about this? Here's the reaction of some of the ICE thugs. This is after Renee was killed. Watch this. Look at them. Watch again. They're giddy.
Yeah, pretty low empathy response.
They are literally giddy. They're acting like kids whose mom just told them that they're going to Chuck E. Cheese. That's what this looks like to me. This is who these people are, man. This is who these people are. Like they get off on violence. They are sadists. That's what they are. All right, more. Here we go. So take a look at how DHS, so more feds here, here's how they react when they see a memorial for Renee Good. You ready for this? This is mind-boggling.
Really, you fucking punk? That's what you're gonna fucking do? What? 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 Do you know what the fuck is that is for? What is that for? What is that for? What is that for? You're gonna push me? What is that for? What was that for? You don't give a fuck about her? This is why we're here. This is why we're here. Really, you fucking punk?
Literally knocking over a candle in the memorial for Renee Good, 37-year-old mother who was murdered by ICE thugs. And you can't even make the stretch of an argument, because this is how my brain works. When I see these things, I'm like, what are the right-wingers going to say to try to justify and rationalize this? The first thing I came up with is they're going to say something like, oh, it was a fire hazard, and that's why he had to do it. He was just trying to make sure nothing burned down. Pay close attention. Look at the kind of candle it is. Ready?
Really, you fucking punk? That's what you're going to fucking do? What?
It's a fake candle. It's a fake candle. There's no fire hazard. None at all. These people are loathsome, man. Now, you want to have the conversation about who is actually running people over with their car. The answer is ICE. This is
part I was referring to before as well. So this is a car hitting a civilian. What do you consider this?
Actually from Minneapolis in December. Look at what ICE does and listen to their reaction. So they rammed that person with the front side of their car and then laugh about it. Again, watch. Now, by the way, I should also point out.
Now, she got hit more directly than the other guy.
With Renee Good, even if you steel man the case of Jonathan Ross or whatever that fucking scumbag's name is, even if you steel man his case, she was what, 5 feet away from you on a wet, wintry road? So even if the wheel was pointed at you, you would have what, sustained minor injuries, maybe, if that? And your reaction to that was to say, I think my life's in danger, and murder her? And then here we go. Here's ICE Gestapo thugs doing the same thing, except they're actually doing it, as opposed to Renee, who wasn't doing it, and laughing about it afterwards. All right, shout out to Status Coup, by the way. They're the ones who got that video. More here. So this is a mask-off moment for a right-winger. This guy, as many people have said, is like the epitome of the online right. Listen to the shit that he says, bro.
The storm is here. When we come one, we go all.
So this is QAnon shit. The storm is here, where we go one, we go all. This is all QAnon shit. Which, by the way, mighty rich that the president this guy supports is a pedophile, rapist, Epstein best friend. And he's still doing this thing like, it's the Democrats who are the pedophiles of the rape. It's unbelievable.
No one can stop what is coming. Get here, guys. We need you in Minnesota. These people are fucking terrorists. Patriots, get out here. We need the backup. And all you liberal commie motherfuckers, keep your hands to yourself. You're gonna get hurt today, all right? We executed one of you yesterday. You understand that?
We executed one of you yesterday. You understand that? They're happy about it. Look, I got to say, for this guy here, at least he's being honest. He's not playing hide the ball. He's saying what they really think. He's bragging about the fact that Renee Good was executed. You have a bunch of dishonest right-wingers pretending, like, I don't know what you're talking about. She wasn't executed. That was self-defense, right? At least he's saying it. No, it wasn't execution. But what he's saying is, I support it. I like it.
Very antagonistic, you would say.
You're just talking to white supremacists. You guys keep playing stupid games. Do not give them attention. You guys keep playing stupid.
And it appears like that woman is a lefty and trying to de-escalate still.
You're gonna keep getting stupid prizes. The storm.
So it's kind of noteworthy, isn't it, that you have the ICE Gestapo thugs behind this guy as he's like spewing this shit, and they all seem totally cool with it, right? Like they're all like, yeah, that guy's on our team. That guy's like one of our leaders. That's what this looks like, doesn't it? All right, more. Here's Representative Randy Fine, also known as the guy who said we should nuke Gaza like it's Hiroshima or Nagasaki. He said he loves seeing images of starving Palestinians.
Now, so Randy Fine, for those who don't know, very pro-Israel person, and his thoughts will polarize the right. That's where the civil war is right now on the right. It's Nick Fuentes, Ben Shapiro, and Candace Owens, or not Ben Shapiro, what am I talking about? Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson, and Candace Owens versus Ben Shapiro, Randy Fine, Mark Levin, Dennis Prager. Who else? Maybe even Tim Pool's on that side too. So if you want to see the conservatives fight, talk about Israel, and you'll see the fight then.
Palestinian babies. This is all on the record. Don't take my word for it. This is who this guy is. He's the most disgusting, Zionist, depraved, genocidal pig in the world. He also happens to be like 7,000 pounds. Well, anyway, listen to what he said.
These ICE agents, the left believes they can do anything they want, and we're just supposed to sit down and take it.
The irony of that statement in this moment. The irony of that statement as the ICE Gestapo thugs do whatever they want and commit murder and are fucking getting away with it. And this is this guy's reaction.
It's time for Americans to say enough. And if you get in the way of the government repelling a foreign invasion, you're going to end up just like that lady did yesterday.
So here you have a Republican MAGA congressman saying, we will continue to murder American citizens if you disagree with us. We'll continue to do it. Jesus, man. We did a speed run into fascism. All right. How about this one? Ken Klibenstein says, Fox News host calls masked Minneapolis protesters cowardly. Co-host says ICE agents are also masked, but, quote, that's for a different reason. They don't want to get doxxed. So the representatives of the state, it's okay that they're covering their face, even though we pay them and we're their boss. But innocent citizens who can be harassed and attacked, they shouldn't be covering their face. Oh, my God. I don't have enough words to describe how much I hate these people.
Even if you don't agree with them, it is good to be exposed to the viewpoints just so you know them.
Look how many people are wearing masks
Yeah.
at this protest. And it's not just because it's cold. They're wearing all sorts of masks. They're trying to disguise their faces. And in some localities, they have said that this is no longer allowed. What do you think of that and how it feels like this isn't right?
Yeah, so we saw that even at yesterday's incident and then in the aftermath, and it was an interesting split screen as the press conference was going on with Jacob Frey and the police chief saying that they were peacefully protesting, and at the same time we were seeing on the left side of the screen that they were attacking ICE, breaking windows.
Oh my God, these lying sons of bitches. Oh my God. And by the way, NSPM 7 is now in effect. They treat dissent as terrorism. Everybody should be out there covering their face if you're a citizen. Because Palantir is going to fucking spy on you and create a mass blackmail database on your ass. So you should be doing that if you're a citizen. Now, if you are in ICE, you shouldn't have the fucking right to choose. No, you can't have somebody who, where their boss, we pay them. They're supposed to represent us. They're supposed to.
Nope, I do not love Kyle Kalinske Ashkerly. I'm in the middle of Matt Walsh and Kyle Kalinske. And there's even things I disagree with, or I agree with Tucker Carlson on, and Candace Owens on, and even Nick Fuentes. I agree with them on some things as well.
Protect and serve us, and they're covering their face to allow themselves to commit crimes with impunity?
Again, close to rioting. They are aware of the fact that they're on camera. They want to stay anonymous. There is, I'm sure, all kinds of Antifa elements in there. That's not.
And so people will think he's spin, but then they'll hear Matt Walsh's side and then not think that is spin. That's the cognitive dissonance there. Because the newsflash, they're both spin. The only place you didn't hear spin was Dr. Grande. And probably Bruce. Bruce Rivers probably didn't either.
Hey everyone, I'm Megan Kelly. Welcome to the Megan.
Where the frick is it? There it is.
It has now been over 24 hours since the fatal shooting of a female driver by an ICE agent in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And we're getting a much more clear picture of what happened. The media all over X, the mainstream, have lost their effing minds. They've lost their minds about this. The local authorities in Minnesota and Minneapolis are gone. They're too far gone to be reasoned with. They're going to get an ICE agent killed. That's what's going to happen. They're not going to be happy until an ICE agent is dead. I realize a woman died yesterday. I'm sorry, but that was her own doing. Who among us would not understand that if we did not respond to law enforcement surrounding our car, telling us to get out, we were endangering ourselves? Who among us would expect to live if we pressed the accelerator with a cop in front of our SUV? Like, that's what she did. Everyone would know you are putting your own life in danger.
Now, yes, this is the opposite spin that you just heard from Kyle Kalinske, right? Kyle Kalinske was the one side of the spin. This is the other. Where's the truth? To me, the truth is in the middle. And I truly think that. But a lot of people don't think that. They think, no, it's one or the other. But I would say, no, I think it's in the middle. I think it's more along the lines of what Dr. Grande said.
There's so much to get to. There is a stunning development that just happened in this story that we, I believe exclusively, just confirmed. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem mentioned in media interviews yesterday that the ICE agent who shot the driver in Minneapolis was involved. He was involved in a prior incident last June that was very similar to what happened yesterday. Well, we now have the video of that incident, and we've confirmed with the government that this is the relevant video that Kristi Noem was referencing. This is video of the incident she was referencing involving this same officer. He was dragged during an ICE arrest just this past June and got seriously injured. This same guy, this poor ICE agent. Per the Department of Justice, on June 17th, 2025, law enforcement officers attempted to arrest Roberto Carlos Munoz Guatemala, a convicted sex offender, on an immigration order. By the way, this is what ICE officers are trying to do. This is the terrible work that these lunatics are out there protesting against. They'd rather have Mr. Guatemala have access to their children, I guess.
So also to note as well, what could all of this be distracting from? There's been a Minnesota fraud, and now this. What else is still going on? What are we not hearing about right now? Not so much about Epstein anymore, huh? Not so much about whatever's going on in Venezuela. When's the last time you heard about Venezuela? What's going on with our negotiations with their vice president now? Oh, do we know? I haven't heard anything about it. This distracts from everything. So again, if you keep in mind there's political theater going on, you always got to take a step back and think, oh, what are they diverting us from with some of this?
Because this agent that they're now demonizing as a murderer was the one who stopped him, along with his fellow ICE agents. The guy was uncooperative. He refused to follow instructions. After warning him several times, an agent, who is the same agent involved in yesterday's shooting, broke the back window of the suspect's car so that he could open the vehicle from the inside. The man then accelerated his car. You can see it's the same agent. The guy had a mask on yesterday, but same hair. As he sped away,
and what I would say to Megyn Kelly here is, I think most people are for criminals being taken out, especially if, or taken out of the country, I should say, not taken out in that way, but especially them, right? Enforce for sure. I think most people can agree with that.
Agent's arm became trapped between the seat and the car frame. You can't see the agent in this video we're showing, but we are showing the car rushing away from the scene. The agent is on the driver's side toward the back, so you cannot see him being dragged.
And so she's playing all this before she gets into the shooting.
But he's being dragged, and that's undisputed, for more than 100 yards. While the maniac driving the car is weaving back and forth in an attempt to shake him from the car, completely immune to the thought of running over him or what other damage he was causing. The agent was eventually jarred free from the car, but suffered significant injuries to his arms and hand. Look at this. If you're not listening, if you're only listening to this, you've got to go and check out our YouTube at 3 minutes after the hour. His arm looks mutilated. It's a shot of him in his hospital bed where you can't see his head, but you can see his arms and his legs. And that arm clearly shows the damage of what he had just been through.
So apparently he got like attacked somehow. And I guess this is an ICE agent and he had like an altercation with someone in that car. I'm guessing that's what's happened.
Okay. This is incredibly relevant to what this guy's perception of the danger was. Now, we'll get into the legal standard, which is more of whether it was objectively reasonable for him to think this woman was going to run over him. But that incident will play into whether it was objectively reasonable. Other ICE agents and other cops have been watching this happen time after time. It's happened over 100 times that ICE agents.
Now, this is someone else. It's just like a violent incident that happened in another kind of stop. It's not the person that was the shooter. The shooter was in a different incident a few months ago. They did say that, where he was dragged by a car somehow. I don't know much about that story, but that's what I've been hearing circulating around.
Have been charged, rammed, or dragged by so-called watchers. They're calling her like an observer. You know, like we just have eyes on the cop. You were much more than an observer, madam. These guys are putting their lives on the line every day to arrest people like Mr. Guatemala, who was molesting kids. That's what they're doing there. That's what Mayor Jacob Fry appears to object to.
And so it's not a coincidence that Kyle Kulinski is framing it as a clear-cut murder and Gestapo thugs and Trump thugs. That's not a coincidence. And it's not a coincidence Megyn Kelly is talking about this first to set the stage so you're emotionally primed to see this incident the way she wants you to see it. That's what's going on.
Not to mention Governor Tim Walz. What a shock. Okay, now we're going to walk you through the key videos from yesterday showing what happened in detail. That video we brought to you yesterday at the end of our show was ultimately the video that President Trump tweeted out as well. It is critical.
It's interesting, though, Barry, because I get accused of being a radical leftist, and then you accuse me of being a bootlegger. But this is what I say. This is what I mean when I say I'm in the middle, and everyone doesn't like me when I'm in the middle. So it's dangerous for me to even talk about it, but here I am.
So many of the people who jumped down the throats of these cops didn't see it or ignored it because it was inconvenient to show her actually accelerating into the cop who shot her. But it's all there on tape. We'll begin with the moments leading up to the shooting. Currently, there are no videos we've seen showing what happened leading up to the incident. But there is a witness account that 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good, she's the one who was shot, Renee Good, was blocking traffic, hoping to impede ICE investigations. That's what she was doing there. All right. Her wife has admitted it. Democrats are calling her, as I pointed out, a quote, legal observer. Wrong. What's been reported so far about her background makes clear she was there to agitate, and her actual job had nothing to do with the law. She was a poet.
I woke up to some commotion. I heard some whistles going on out front, so I came downstairs to see what was going on. Wasn't even dressed. And there was a car, the Honda Pilot that's crashed over there now. There's a car blocking the 2 lanes of Portland traffic. And the ICE agents got out and they were saying, get out of here, get out of here. She was the main car leading the protest, is my understanding. I talked to another guy who was driving behind her. But she was very successful in blocking traffic. She was doing what she was set out to do, and so they wanted to get her the hell out of there. Yeah.
So it looked like she was impeding ICE vehicles.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
That was her goal.
Yeah, her goal was to obstruct and protest ICE. Yes, that was the goal. It doesn't mean you should be killed, but that was her goal.
This is a sympathetic witness to her. The clip goes on. She's very angry at ICE. If anything, this woman had a reason to lie to make the woman driving the car, Renee Good, sound better. But there she is on camera saying, very clearly that this woman who was ultimately shot was leading the protests and impeding the traffic across this Portland Avenue, that she was parked perpendicular to the traffic. Now that'll get you arrested pretty much 10 times out of 10. So this is not a fan of ICE, and clearly her eyewitness testimonial is not favorable to Ms. Good. In this still image, you see a federal agent who we believe is the agent who eventually fires at Ms. Good. The agent is being followed closely by a female protester. She has identified herself as Renee Good's wife. She has her phone up, likely recording him. The agent also has a phone in his hand, likely recording her. Did the agent have a negative interaction with these women that caused him to begin recording too? We don't know yet. But clearly something was going on before, and it wasn't needlepoint. We have not yet seen the actual video that was on the cop's phone. But here's video we do have of that moment and what happened afterward. Again, they both appear to be recording each other's actions.
And we already played what was on the cop's phone.
You see a gray
ICE agent's phone, I should say.
Truck pull up. We talked about that yesterday. 2 federal agents step out. The driver of the maroon SUV, Ms. Good, says, "What's going on?" The officers quickly walk up and tell Ms. Good to get out.
So this guy here, what is he pointing at with his left hand there? Because I think that's what Kyle Kalinske was pointing to. What is he doing with that? I don't know what the hell he's even doing. But do you see it? What is this doing?
Out of the car. And then to, quote, "get out of the fucking car." Things are escalating. Good's window is down.
Doesn't look like those 2 agents were on the same page there.
She's looking directly at them. There is no way she did not hear the commands to get out of her car, repeated commands. She then puts her car into reverse. And here is the part of the video with sound of the agents making the commands and her beginning to reverse.
No!
So the other guy's just watching it. Like, what the hell is he doing?
We believe that's her wife yelling no and recording. Right as Good reverses her car, you're about to see the agent who fired the shot move in front of the vehicle near the driver's side headlight. It's video. There's one guy on the side who's blocking the agent at issue, but you can see that there is an agent in front.
I mean, to me, he was clearly also out of the way at this point. Like, just didn't need to happen that way.
Front of her car. It's right there, black and white. At first, you only see the agent at the driver's side door, and his body is kind of blocking the shooting cop. He's fighting to get the car door open as Good goes into reverse. The agent who fired the shots moves into the frame in front of the SUV. Good is still reversing backward. She immediately puts it in drive and starts accelerating forward toward the cop. There was zero hesitation between Good reversing the vehicle and putting it into drive and clearly pressing the gas. By the way, this cop clearly would have heard the car begin to accelerate. About 2 seconds passes between the tires moving forward and the gunfire. The same agent then fires 2 more rounds. At that point, the SUV keeps moving forward before eventually crashing into a parked car. And the bullet hole that you can see is in the...
My whole thinking was she was trying to drive away. That's kind of what I think. And she panicked at the same time. Of course, she should have gotten out of the car. Absolutely.
The front windshield. The front. That's where he took the initial shot to stop her from running him over. The agent, again, who we understand was the one to fire the shot, did walk down toward the crashed SUV before walking back up and telling others to call 911. There is another angle of the shooting that we brought to you yesterday, which I mentioned, which is key. This video was obtained by the local ABC affiliate. We've circled the agent and we've slowed down the video. Look at this. I'm sorry, but he's getting run over when he fires the shot. You can clearly see her hit him. About 2 seconds passes between the time.
And again, my whole thing was, if you have the time to pull out your firearm and fire it accurately and hit her, you also definitely have time just to step to the right 1 foot and get out of the way. Just that's the part that was unnecessary to me. But again, the defense is going to say exactly what Megyn Kelly's saying here. He was in fear for his life, so it's justified. But as a human, I think it just didn't seem to be necessary.
fires moving forward and the gunfire. The same agent then fires 2 more rounds. At that point, the SUV keeps moving forward before eventually crashing into a parked car. And the bullet hole that you can see is in the front windshield. The front. That's where he took the initial shot to stop her from running him over. The agent, again, who we understand was the one to fire the shot, did walk down toward the crashed SUV before walking back up and telling others to call 911. There is another angle of the shooting that we brought to you yesterday, which I mentioned, which is key. This video was obtained by the local ABC affiliate. We've circled the agent and we've slowed down the video. Look at this. I'm sorry, but he's getting run over when he fires the shot. You can clearly see her hit him.
I would argue that's clearly. But you notice this, the definitive language that everyone uses when they describe this stuff. It's like, that's definitive? Could he have been grazed? Yeah. I'm not saying he couldn't have been grazed. I'm saying it's just not definitive. It's possible.
That's what happens. It's blurry, but you see him put his foot back to brace himself as he was hit by the car before he fires and moves to the side. Here's an image of his leg backward, appearing to brace himself. You've got to watch this on our YouTube channel if you're just listening to this now. We've added an arrow pointing toward his leg so you can see what we're talking about. Okay, this guy knew he was about to get hit.
So this very moment is his gun out. I can't tell. See, this guy's blocking it.
We also noticed something else, something interesting.
He does have his phone in his hand though, right? Look at the phone, filming.
That will be huge if it gets released to the public. The agent who fires his gun, as I referenced, is holding up his cell phone still, likely still recording when she accelerates toward him.
And again, we played that video earlier.
Here's a closer image. You see his hand holding what appears to be his phone. So there is likely video of this incident from the agent's vantage point. And if this does go to trial, that will be extremely important evidence. From this image, you can see where one of the bullets entered, again, the driver's window. There's also a...
So one bullet hole, one bullet hole. I don't know. It's like, even if I had a gun and someone's in that position, it just wouldn't have been my first thought to think, yes, I have to shoot her in the face 3 times to neutralize this threat. My thought would be, let me sidestep to the right. As a human, that's what I would hope people would do. Because think about who it is here too. This is a 37-year-old woman, a woman in a relationship with another woman who's a mother. It's like, don't you want to have a little more grace in that kind of scenario? Now, again, if you're dealing with like some sort of gang member somewhere, I can totally get being more jumpy and trigger happy in those cases. Absolutely. But this isn't some freaking gangbanger. This is a mother.
Another video taken by another eyewitness that shows agents telling a man who says he's a doctor that he can't go near the victim to help her. Watch this.
Can I go check a pulse?
No! Back up! Now!
I'm a physician!
Hey, listen, we understand. We got EMS coming, and I get it. Just give us a second. We have medics on scene. We have our own medics.
Where are they? Where are they? How can I relax? You just killed my fucking neighbor!
In comparison to some sort of gangbangers, Crips and Bloods and bikers and MS-13, this woman is a goody two-shoes in comparison to those kinds of people. I mean, absolutely. There's no... She's probably even a goody two-shoes in comparison to the Somalians there.
You caught butter in the fucking face! You killed my fucking neighbor! How do you show up to work every day? How the fuck do you do this every day?
How do you protect Mr. Guatemala, lady, to molest the children of Minneapolis? That's the real question. So now they're ripping on the cops because they didn't let...
What is she even talking about? So she's claiming that this person if they're not for what ICE is doing, they must be for the people molesting. I don't know. That's something else.
Some rando who claimed to be a physician, they had no idea whether he was, have access to the crime scene, and the woman who was behind the wheel of the car apparently already dead. They did call 911. They did have EMS on the way, as you heard the officer say. There's no obligation to let some rando come over and corrupt your crime scene, all right? There's not. And there's no obligation to let yourself be run over by a dangerous instrumentality, which is what a car is.
Thank you very much for this, Arwen. I appreciate you in the chat. I definitely appreciate all the super chats and the support from everyone here. It's been awesome.
Certainly an SUV, but any car. That you are being fed so many lies by the mainstream media right now, not to mention the Democrat officials in Minnesota. You really do have to pay attention to understand the law and what's real. A new year means new financial goals, like making sure your savings are secure and diversified. Will this be the year you decide to talk to someone from Birch Gold Group? They use an educational approach with a deep understanding of macroeconomics. There are forces put.
So the whole rest of this is an ad. Tricky Megyn Kelly. And maybe the last one we'll do. Get some law. Angry cop or someone else for a law enforcement view. Brandon Tatum or angry cop? All these news networks are taking up the space.
Process of Miss Good as she backs up. Holy crap, the shooting of a young lady in Minnesota by an ICE agent has really took the United States news media by storm. I can't remember a police-involved shooting that was this large since George Floyd. Ooh, Minnesota catching no breaks. And I say it's on the level of George Floyd because everybody's talking about it. Your mom, your neighbor, your local news, your mayor, your senator, late night talk show host, the vice president and president of the United States. But what's the reality of it all? No rage bait, no politics, just the video and legal precedents and none of the BS. Well, that's what I'm here to give you today. So pull up a chair and let's break down the incident from the video, the comments.
Surprisingly, Tony Bruschi, Hidden Killers, did not go over this.
And the news that we've received so far. And if you're wondering, well, what could I possibly add to this scenario? I was able to get the dispatch call logs from a couple of people that work in the city of Minnesota, which can add a little bit of context to the overall incident. Now, we have a lot to break down, and I'll even get into the what-ifs later on at the end of the video of, well, what if that happened? And what if this means something? Does that mean that they can or can't do a thing? And we'll get there. But first, a word from this video's sponsor, Aura.
Now, as a cop, he'll be more likely to support the ICE agent, no doubt.
Right now about this officer-involved shooting. ICE agents are operating in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and they're conducting an investigation. During that investigation, one of the ICE agents' unmarked vehicles are stuck in the snow. While stuck in the snow, the ICE agents radio to others that they need assistance. Now, during the time that the ICE agents are stuck in the snow, that other agents begin to arrive so they can assist them in getting unstuck, a group of anti-ICE protesters, at this moment known as ICE Watch, block the road and obstruct traffic. The protest vehicles obstruct the roadways where the ICE agents' vehicles are located during this investigation, and that also includes civilian vehicles that aren't associated with the investigation. ICE agents then approach the vehicle that is obstructing traffic. That vehicle attempts to drive off while ICE agents are making contact with it, and in the process, potentially strikes an ICE agent, resulting in that agent discharging his firearm and striking the driver of that vehicle. The driver received medical aid on scene, but was pronounced dead from their injuries. Now, that's as vanilla as I could make it. But like everything in life, it's not that simple, is it? Now, Once the internet got a hold of some of the video by some of the protesters and other witnesses that were around the incident, of course, the internet took it and ran with it. And just like that, the internet has been filled with use of force lawyers. Those determining what is.
And so what I'd say to that, Kat, is there are times when police are certainly justified in protecting themselves because there are cases where it is them or the other person. That absolutely happens. Now, other times, though, like I just think in this case, it wasn't necessary. It wasn't necessary. I don't think it, like legally, it'll probably pass, but just as a human, I don't think it was necessary. It didn't have to happen.
What isn't legal, what is or isn't justified, and trying to place intent on the driver or the ICE agent that fired his duty weapon. And that also includes intentionally leaving out other videos or deleting comments that could or do conflict with their statements or their point of view of the overall incident. So let's start at the beginning, go through all the videos, some of the comments, concerns, and the conclusions that people draw from on the internet, and we'll compare them to case law to determine whether or not this was or wasn't a lawful shoot. I find this to be one of the more interesting points of this police-involved shooting. Let's say, in a perfect world, where the ICE officer is without blame and we already understand that he is authorized to use deadly force. When does that authorization of deadly force stop? When is the vehicle no longer a threat? The first shot, let's argue and say that he's 100% in the right and that she is aiming for him, and he lets off that first round. There are photos of the bullet hole going through the front of the windshield. But what about the next two? The next two are when he's slightly to the side of the vehicle and shooting through the driver's window. If we can argue that the first shot is a legitimate good shoot because he was in front of the vehicle and feared for his life, could we argue that because he's to the side of the vehicle, that those second and third shots are an overstep when it comes to use of lethal force? What the people investigating this shoot are going to have to do is determine that that one reaction resulted in that simultaneous firing of 3 rounds, bang, 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 or will they say that although the first round was justified, in that split second between the first and second round, there was no longer a threat to his personal safety as the vehicle was going to the right of him, making the second and third shots no longer justifiable lethal force. Honest opinion, because it happened so closely, I doubt that the second and third shots will be used as a secondary incident trying to show an excessive use of force. Either it all is or none of it is. Sure, we can slow it down to make it seem like an eternity, but the time between the first and third shots are only a matter of 1 to 2 seconds. And now we get to the aftermath.
Look, the shots came late.
Of the shooting, the conclusion, the aid that's given medically to Miss Good, and also the 911 dispatch calls, which I've received and I'll share with you. In some of the videos from the aftermath, it shows officers walking away, specifically the officer that shot Miss Good. People say that that's a red flag. They also state that nobody was giving her medical aid fast enough, and that civilians on the side of the road were stating that they could render aid, or that they were medical physicians themselves and could assist the officers.
Can I go check a pulse? No, back up now.
And I'll talk to those two things directly. First, the officer involved with the shooting not rendering aid and walking away. It's normal practice for an officer who gets involved with an officer-involved shooting to immediately remove himself from the area and allow other officers to render aid. There are already dozens of other officers there, ICE agents, etc., that can assist Miss Good after being shot and the vehicle stopping. Why the officers involved in the shooting walk away from incidents like that is to protect the integrity of an officer-involved shooting investigation. Hypothetically, if I were
stepping away, that's the fair thing for the cop to do for a police protocol.
To shoot somebody, and then I was the person rendering aid to that individual, and that person died, would you not, or the public not, immediately wonder if I was actually rendering aid to the person that just A, tried to kill me, and B, that I just killed? Even in this scenario, as much news as it's got, I think it's reasonable for you and I to agree outsiders looking in, including media, would have been upset that the officer who shot Miss Good was rendering aid, and that
I don't think anyone was expecting the guy who shot her to do it. They're just trying to say other people should have, like the guy who's offering right now.
that she passed away. So it is common practice that the officer involved in a shooting that pulls the trigger, is not the individual to render aid to an individual that's been shot. I see that as a non-issue, but let me know if you disagree. Second, the rendering of aid by an individual that's on scene. We already have a chaotic scene where individuals have tried to prevent ICE agents from doing their investigation, and it's resulted in an officer-involved shooting. At this time, I think we can understand that the optics of allowing random people into an evidentiary lockdown area because it's an officer-involved shooting is a bad idea. Most officers are already trained in some form of quick combat casualty care. Tourniquets, quick clot, Israeli bandages, and pressure in order to assist somebody in living, to include CPR.
But the issue was no one did. Like, no one did any of these things. I think that's what the guy who was a medic or a doctor was seeing, that no one was doing those things.
And as we'll see in just a moment, when I break down the radio log, Miss Good is rendered aid immediately by professionals, a step above law enforcement officers, the fire department, and their much better trained staff. I'm not sure the fire department here has paramedics on it, but I've yet to see a fire department that doesn't have somebody medically qualified as a paramedic assisting them when it comes to incidents where individuals are injured, shot, etc., before medical personnel arrive. And when I say medical personnel, I mean the ambulatory individuals. So now that we've broken down this scenario, the next portion of the video shows the detainment. After Miss Good waves on a vehicle, ICE agents in an unmarked car activate their lights and exit their vehicle and tell Miss Good to step out. They further their actions by going up to Miss Good's vehicle, trying to open the door and remove her from her vehicle. Now, some people say that ICE cannot conduct traffic stops, which may be correct or may be playing in the gray a little bit, but ICE agents do have the authority to stop vehicles and effect an arrest or detain somebody if an individual is obstructing an investigation, which, if we backtrack it to the beginning, was the intent of Miss Good being at the ICE agent's location during their investigation. Now, I use the word detained instead of arrest intentionally. Specifically in New York, where I'm from, detain means that the individual that's stopped feels as though they're not free to leave. And that can be done in several different ways, which I touched on, and I'll repeat for you again. A law enforcement officer activates the lights in an unmarked car, not uncommon. Gets out of the vehicle, dressed as a uniformed officer. In fact, Miss Good understands that she's there to intentionally prevent ICE agents from conducting an investigation. So she understands contact with an ICE agent, very possible. That ICE agent then gives verbal commands to get out of the vehicle. Now, I know some comments might say, well, it didn't say ICE, it didn't say police. You can't really make it out at that time. Once again, Miss Good is there to intentionally disrupt the investigation of ICE agents. Although it is an unmarked vehicle, it activates its lights, and a uniformed officer steps out of the vehicle giving verbal commands. A reasonable person would understand that they, at that time, are detained and not free to leave. And that detention is highlighted even more after the officer gives and continues to give commands to get out of the vehicle while attempting to open the door and remove Miss Good from the vehicle. Now, without trying to sound a little too sarcastic, as I am trying to be straightforward.
And yeah, and everyone said she should have stopped and gotten out.
With this, could you imagine what may or may not have happened had she complied with the ICE officer with lights on his vehicle in uniform, giving a direct command to get out of your vehicle and then attempting to open and remove?
But he's also not mentioning the other person that looked like he might have been motioning her to go away with his left arm. That does add confusion.
Move her from the vehicle. Now, at this point in the incident, this is where the controversy begins. This is where attorneys, politicians, late night TV shows, and other members of the public really focus on. At this moment of the interaction, Miss Good puts her vehicle in reverse and backs up a short distance, and then puts her vehicle in drive as an ICE officer goes in front of her vehicle, making his way around to the driver's side. And she drives forward where the officer shoots through the vehicle. His bullets strike Miss Good, which continues her acceleration into a parked vehicle and then into a pole where the vehicle stops. And I'll break this down further into 3 smaller incidents: driving, striking, and the shooting. Let's start with driving. Having already been given instructions by a uniformed officer, Miss Good puts the vehicle in reverse as the officer is attempting to open up her door. It is at this moment that the officer who shoots has already pulled out his firearm. Now, people are disputing, well, she was driving backwards at that time and not a threat. Why did he pull out his firearm? Which, to somebody who's experienced some of these moments.
So he's saying that he pulled out his firearm when she was going backwards. That's what he's saying.
In his career, finds mind-boggling. Officers can draw their weapons if a potential use of force incident is present. Potential. An officer doesn't have to wait for a firearm to be pulled out and then pointed at him to then draw their service weapon. An officer, and this is usually in their manual of procedures, can draw his weapon when he feels threatened or that there is a potential for violence, to include deadly force. An example, if I do a traffic stop and I see somebody rooting around in the center console, aggressively digging at something, I could infer that they could be reaching for a weapon, and I could draw my firearm out. I could then give verbal instructions to show me your hands, and that person could obviously pull out a firearm and shoot at me, or could have just been digging in their center console aggressively because they're panicking and have no weapon on them. Now, in that incident, I would reholster and then engage that person verbally, but in no way, shape, or form is me pulling out or removing my firearm because there is a potential threat, any violation of a manual of procedures, or an excessive use of force. Now, we've already used the word intent. From an officer's perspective, after giving verbal warnings to an individual to get out of the vehicle while wearing their uniform and having their overhead lights, that person decides to move their vehicle, as in shift, to reverse, and move. And this is while an officer is attempting to open the door and attached physically to the vehicle. It is reasonable to assume that that person is now going to try and drive away, possibly into officers in an attempt to flee. They have already shown that they will disregard the verbal orders and the physical action of the officer trying to open up the door and drive away. And now we get into a micro point that people are really dialed into.
Drive away or try to hit him? Certainly people are saying that he tried to hit him or she tried to hit him.
And that is where the front tire is turned to. Individuals are stating that because the wheel was turned a certain way, that adds additional intent or shows the thought process of Miss Good as she backs up and drives forward. Some people state that because her front wheels are straight and pointing towards the ICE officer in front of her vehicle as she accelerates, but the wheels don't get traction, it shows that she was willing to strike the individual officer in front of her vehicle. Others are saying that because she turned the wheel shortly thereafter, that isn't...
Again, my whole thinking is she was trying to drive away. That's what I think.
Attempt in order to avoid the officers, and therefore has no liability and is zero threat to the officer that's in front of her vehicle making his way around to the driver's side, which makes me want to rehash how we got here. And this will come up again shortly when I talk about the shooting, the actual shots being fired. Miss Good is there intentionally to obstruct ICE officers in their official duties. She is detained by ICE officers when they activate their lights, step out of the vehicle in uniform, given verbal directions to get out of the car, have that officer then reach for the handle and attempt to open the door physically and remove her. And now she has chose to ignore those verbal commands, put the vehicle in reverse, and drive a short distance, couple feet, as an officer in front of her vehicle making his way to the driver's side pulls out his firearm. Having all of these things happen in the order that I stated, Miss Good then makes the decision to accelerate. Any defense attorney would have an extremely difficult time trying to defend Miss Good if she stated that she didn't know that she was detained at that moment. Once again, intentional obstruction, lights, officer in uniform.
Now, if you're Miss Good, you can say this person here before this motioning to the left. You could say that could add to the confusion. You're not going to see it in this video, I don't think. But the video previously that Megyn Kelly showed, I think does show that.
Verbal commands attempt to physically open and remove the driver, backs up as another officer draws his firearm and points it at the vehicle, at her, the driver. Not even driving forward yet, no shots fired. And a jury or a judge, if it's a bench trial, would have an extremely difficult time believing that Miss Good was not detained at that moment. And now we move on to struck or not struck. From the different angles and the different times being put together, in my opinion, it looks like the officer is struck. Or potentially he puts his hand on the hood, jumps back, and that acceleration pushes him backward.
And that's a good way to think of it too, that I didn't really think of, that him putting his hand on the hood. That's a different thing, I think, than being actually struck with the vehicle. Maybe that could explain some of the noise too, the banging of the hood, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
Around the corner of the vehicle as he fires at Miss Good. Now, does the striking matter? Yes, it does, but it's not as important as people think. Whether he's struck or not struck, it is the officer's interpretation of whether he is being assaulted with a deadly weapon. If he believes that she is driving at him and that vehicle will strike him, he is allowed to use deadly force. Let me break that down because I know you're getting upset. What do you mean if he believes it? From a victim's standpoint, if I go up to an old person with a squirt gun, but it doesn't have any orange tip and it looks like a firearm, and I point it at them and I say, hey, give me your money. And then they pull out their .44 Magnum and proceed to put every bullet.
I'm actually familiar with some of this because I did interview this woman named Chelsea Noel, and her brother was arrested for manslaughter 2, I think is what he was charged for. And her whole thing is they're trying to get him off on self-defense, but it didn't work yet, and he's been in jail for 5 years. So there's levels to it, but when you're law enforcement, they're going to give you more of the benefit of the doubt, 9 times out of 10.
Through my sternum, I am at fault. Why? Because the victim, the individual, reasonably believed that I had pulled out a firearm with the intent to rob them, which is a deadly force authorized situation. If I pull out a knife and start screaming at you, you feel that I may stab you with that knife.
And everything he's saying here is just what the defense is going to say. They're going to say the car was coming at him, he felt afraid for his life, and he had no choice. And how do you prove that wrong? How do you prove that wrong if this ever gets in front of a prosecutor? I mean, they probably say some of the things I was saying before, but prosecutors, they don't really have hard-ons for getting other law enforcement officers. They're all on the same team. So it has to be pretty bad. It has to be pretty bad, I think, for them to even get in front of a judge in that situation.
My intent may be to put it away. It could be a rubber knife. But you as the victim feel, and reasonably so, that I am threatening you with a knife and that I will stab you, or I have the potential to stab you. That is also a deadly force authorized incident. So, an ICE agent crossing over the front of the vehicle, having seen the vehicle back up while an officer is trying to open the door, post verbal warnings and the lights being on and detainment, reasonably believes that that person, after backing up, could potentially run his partner that's on the vehicle or him over, draws his firearm. The vehicle then lunges forward and accelerates, to which he believes he is about to be struck by a vehicle and fires. And if you don't think that a vehicle is a deadly weapon, I would strongly disagree. Just look at the amount of time.
And I would ask him, so what do you think of those ICE agents that hit that other dude in the car? What about that? So that hitting was more severe, if you ask me too.
That vehicles have been used in order to intentionally assault large groups of people during terrorist attacks, or even domestics where somebody gets upset at another person, decides to run them over with a car. A car is a 2-ton bullet that you can turn. And it just so happens that the officer who fired those rounds into Miss Good's car was drugged by a vehicle 300 yards while attempting to effect an arrest just
300 feet, not 300 yards. While executing an arrest warrant on an illegal alien resulting in 33 stitches just 6 months ago. Video and full details below. And again, if he was really still in such a bad mental place because of this, probably not the best to be in a job where you have a deadly firearm and rash decisions could mean the ending of someone's life.
Months ago. So even if this officer was on the stand, he could state, I have been drugged by a vehicle just 6 months ago because somebody did not want to be arrested. And here he has another scenario, an individual ignoring directions and verbal commands from a uniformed ICE agent, a federal officer, who is then trying to make entry into her vehicle to effect detainment, possibly an arrest, to which she ignores, reverses the vehicle with the officer attempting to open it, attached to her vehicle, and then accelerates in the direction of the officer that's holding the firearm.
I never said it wasn't bad to be dragged. I'm saying if you're still mentally in a bad spot because of what happened, you probably shouldn't be on duty in a job where you need a firearm. And your decisions can cost people their lives, is what I would say.
My personal opinion, it looks as though his left hip bounces off the front headlight of the vehicle as he puts his hand down on the hood and attempts to jump out of the way of the vehicle. If you disagree with me and say, no, you have to be directly in front of the vehicle or it has to hit you in order for you to use deadly force, I would then ask you, then where is the cutoff? Do you have to get hit by the vehicle? Does it have to launch you a certain distance? Does a certain amount of it have to make contact with you? And what amount? Do you just have to be near it? How near? Because if you're putting your hand on top of a hood and having to do some Michael Jackson weird hit move to avoid being struck, you avoid being struck by the vehicle, not the vehicle avoiding you, from the point of a victim, I would say that that vehicle is a legitimate threat to your personal safety, including a threat to your life. I would also reference all the accident videos you see where people just get clipped a little bit and fly in the air or are drug underneath a vehicle. It's a vehicle in it.
So we know what happened after this, right? And he didn't fly or anything like that. He wasn't knocked over. Like, that's what we know, right? And even so, like, let's say he was grazed. Like, does that really change much? In the eyes of the defense, it probably helps their case more if he was grazed. But even if he wasn't grazed, the defense's case would be the same thing. He was in fear for his life. Doesn't matter, he wasn't hit. He just thought he might be at the time. That's what the defense is going to say. If it even gets to a defense, which I doubt. I doubt it will.
It's made of metal, right? I'm a dude just made out of flesh and bones, right? Now we move on to the shooting. Get ready for this. Let's start at the beginning. Why was Miss Good there? Well, from video that was on scene prior to the shooting taking place, and also an interview with one of the other protesters that were a part of Miss Good's overall group, we know that Miss Good was there to intentionally protest against the presence of ICE agents. And during the interview with the co-protester of Miss Good, the co-protester stated this.
They clearly wanted her out of there because she was the main car leading the protest, is my understanding. I talked to another guy who was driving behind her, but she was very successful in blocking traffic. She was doing what she was set out to do, and so they wanted to get her the hell out of there. Yeah.
So it looked like she was impeding ICE vehicles.
Definitely, yeah, okay. That was her goal.
Miss Good was there as a part of a larger group to protest the presence of ICE. Her job and intent was to block or barricade ICE vehicles from attempting to do whatever it was they were doing. And the video of her doing just that shows that, yes, she was successful at it. I bring this up. Why? Well, because it shows the intent of the individual, Miss Good, on why she was in the area. Some stories and individuals have posted that she was a mom, caught up, confused, and trying to get out. But the video of her intentionally blocking ICE agents in her vehicle and the video of her co-protester stating that that was what she was doing and what she was meant to do or had planned on doing and was very successful at it disproves that. Well, it takes that narrative of lost white woman and puts it to bed. Next portion of video, before anything really occurs, shows Miss Good still in the middle of the roadway, but at an angle, waving vehicles on. Now, some people in the comments and other posters state...
So again, you have to remember about this guy. We listened to the conservative angles with Matt Walsh and Megyn Kelly. We listened to the lefty angle with Kyle Kalinske. We listened to a pretty neutral angle with Dr. Grande. We listened to a little bit more defense-oriented position with Bruce Rivers. I think he was a little more sympathetic to the woman. And now this guy's a cop or a former cop. So he's coming at it from that angle. So he's going to be a little more likely to defend police. Let's just keep it real. And by extension, defend an ICE agent.
See, she was peaceful. She wasn't impeding traffic. She was letting people go, which implies intent. We don't know who she was letting go or why. Unfortunately, she's dead. The only thing we know is that she was previously preventing ICE agents from driving through, but now at this moment is allowing some people through. Whether or not she acknowledges that they're civilian vehicles just going on their way or an ICE vehicle, obviously is speculation. One person obviously can say that she's letting vehicles that aren't ICE agent vehicles through, which means she's letting all vehicles through. And another person could say she's letting civilian vehicles through and not letting ICE agent vehicles through, but some of them got through because they're in unmarked cars. Nobody's right. That's just based on speculation. We don't know what her intent was when it came to waving other cars around her. But we do know that she was there to intentionally prevent and obstruct ICE agents from their investigation by blocking the road, and that she'd already done that successfully. And while we're on the word intent, people are also implying that because she waved some people on, there was no intent to later on strike the ICE officer, which, wow, that's quite a stretch. How many times have you watched an episode of Cops where originally somebody's extremely compliant, but then later on either fights with or tries to shoot or runs or obstructs in some form or fashion officers from them doing their job or trying to effect an arrest? Often. Can a person's previous actions show an intent to eventually use force or become more obstructive? Sure, somebody yelling, screaming, and already being violent could then up it. But somebody being compliant doesn't automatically bring compliance into the future. Compliance and non-compliance can change like that. Yes, officer, I'll give you my ID. Pulls out a gun and shoots him. But guys, originally he said yes, he would give him his ID, and he was...
Ellie says she thinks this guy's on some sauce, maybe some of that Nick Reiner special sauce.
complying with officers. But then moments later, he shot somebody. And just because somebody's compliant at one time doesn't mean that that automatically attributes compliance later on, or a lack of a threat. In Minnesota, ICE agents are currently being monitored by ICE watchers who are currently staged at the Bishop Whipple building. Minnesota Park Police have had reports of media vans staged at Fred Wells Tennis and Education Center across the street. MPD has closed this case, and further criminal investigation is being handled by the FBI. January 7, 2026, at 09:39 in the morning, caller saying ICE agent shot a female in her car. 9:40, ICE officer who did this is still on scene. 09:42, squad cars are assigned to the call. 9:43, traffic advised to shut down traffic. And 9:44, a group is starting to form. At 9:45, fire is giving medical aid. What we can state so far is that within 6 minutes of a 911 call going out, the fire department was already on scene, likely with their own trained paramedics, assisting Miss Good after being shot. 09:46, taping off streets where the incident occurred. 9:47, officers are told to make room for the ambulance coming from 1 block south. 9:49, crowd control is needed where the victim is, and the crowd needs to be pushed back. At 9:50, the call is updated, showing that the shots fired are from federal officers. 9:52, more officers are being sent for crowd control. And 9:53, more cars are needed. 9:55, shutdown of 2 streets. At 9:56, EMS is transporting an individual to HCMC, which I assume is a medical center or hospital. At 9:58, another transport loaded with the victim to the medical center, along with the administration request.
9:58. So there's 18 minutes in between there. I mean, that's enough to be dead.
Requesting a perimeter be made to assist in further evidence gathering. 10:03, 2 casings are recovered. 10:04, the agent has been moved to a federal building. 10:06, additional ambulances are responding. And 10:07, agitators on the east side of the crime scene are cutting police tape. This is important. Individuals that are upset about an officer shooting are now cutting police tape and interfering with a potential homicide investigation. This is not the last time. If you're upset about investigations going poorly or having evidence thrown out that you thought was damning, it is moments like this when individuals break a police line and interfere with homicide investigations that occurs. At 10:10.
And he's right about this. Like, if you really think that he committed a homicide, interfering with the investigation probably won't go well. Now, a cynical person would say, well, we don't trust them to do a good investigation and we trust them to cover it up. That's what a cynical person would say, or make it, I don't know. That's probably what they would say.
And more people are still needed for crowd control. 1013, more MPD officers are needed to get ICE agents to evacuate the scene. And between 1020 and 1026, leadership from federal agencies, as well as city council members, have been arriving on scene and requesting to talk to MPD leadership. At 1027, once again, people are ripping down cordon tape, police tape, and interfering with the investigation. 1027, a crowd is surrounding officers, and by 1030, people are ripping down tape to allow cars and vehicles to drive through a cordoned area by police that are now investigating a potential homicide. At the same time, 911 callers are stating that there's an irate man calling himself the governor and that Bloods and Crips are going to be meeting at a location potentially to cause an issue, which is concerning the 911 caller. I'll put the rest of the call logs here so you can read them as you like. I'll also be posting them on Instagram and Twitter. But the rest of the 911 call log states other things like the mayor arriving on scene to give an impromptu press conference, federal agents being out of the area completely, individuals throwing snowballs and protesters screaming and threatening police officers, MPD officers who had nothing to do with this entire scenario, to include tires being slashed on vehicles, and other protest groups beginning to gather around other locations in the city. So here we are. Who prosecutes this now, right? A federal agency is involved in an officer-involved shooting? Does the local, county, state, or does the ICE agency internal affairs begin an investigation? Based on the information that I've received, I currently understand that the FBI has taken over the investigation regarding the officer-involved shooting between the ICE agent and Miss Good. But what's my conclusion? I've stated all of these things, and I'm sure you might have picked up a little bit on the way, especially when I'm talking about the detainment, that this is a legal shoot. This falls underneath the term that my friend Donut Operator has coined, and that's awful but lawful. What a horrible incident. A mother of three is dead. An ICE agent trying to do his job is obstructed and now finds himself in the middle of a homicide investigation with him as the potential suspect. Tens of hundreds of thousands of people clamoring for the head of the ICE agent without due process happening. And I can only imagine doxing him and trying to threaten his family members who had nothing to do with it. And a middle-aged woman, 36, 37 years old with 3 kids. The kid's father already passed away a couple years ago, now left with no more biological parents. And her death celebrated as a fuck around and find out moment. Ugh. 2 things can be true at the same time. It can be a horrible incident that resulted in the death of an American. And it can be a lawful shoot brought on by an individual who ignores direct commands and panics. If you want to...
No, I mean, it will probably end up being a legal shoot. But even within the definition of a legal shoot, I still think there's room for scrutiny where you could say it didn't need to happen. There's stepping aside. There's other things that could have been done.
See me dive a little deeper into this incident, the rest of this video is going to be on Pepperbox, where it's always uncensored and you get tons of additional content like what I'm about to do now. And I'm far from the only one on there. Best way to support the channel is get yourself a shirt. I got a Jump Out Boys shirt. I got a whole bunch of Anger Cop stuff. Jump Out Boys. God, how appropriate for this video that the Jump Out Boys shirt is ready, brand new, and on the site. Talk about foreshadowing. Cheapest way to support the channel is leave a comment. Tell me.
All right. That's enough of Mr. Law Enforcement there. Pro Cop, Detective Angry Cop. So that's the coverage there. We've done 3 hours of coverage. We've given you every angle there is. That was the only angle we didn't do, I guess, is the wife's angle. And that's because we couldn't find it. But we listened to all the angles and we listened to all the sides. So at the very least, the people who follow me, you are at least equipped with the knowledge. You listen to the knowledge. I forced you to watch it. I forced you to watch all of the sides. Some of you might have hated it with one side. Some of you might have hated it with the other side, but you watched. So, and we survived it. And then hopefully this story's over soon. I got to find out her name, B. If I find out her name, she'd probably come on. We'll certainly get if she comes on, we'll certainly get an anti-ICE and pro her side, although she's probably in grief right now. Which is, that's true too. And that's another thing, right? So she just lost her wife. So let's see how she acts versus how maybe Erica Kirk has been acting, right? This is an opportunity to do that. It's an opportunity to compare and contrast. Which is good though, Heather, right? I try to watch everyone. Oh, her name's Becca. So we'll have to see. I'll see if I can get her. Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of spin we did watch, right? But we watched all of the spin. That's the important part. No. Deb, no. She will not be rubbing up on Vance. She might rub up on Walls, but not Vance. Becca's nickname. I mean, and again, I don't know what she was trying to accomplish with all of that. It seems silly. Silly, yes. Against the law to not comply, yes. But does it mean you should be shot? No. But legally, will he get away with it? Most likely. That's what I would say. Disappointing. I mean, imagine if you're a family member of hers, you'd be like, was that really necessary? Was that necessary? It was not necessary. It was very avoidable. I don't think, I don't know. I have a hard time really believing that he truly felt in danger or like his life was in danger. Of course, he's going to say it for his defense, but I just have a hard time believing it. But anyway, that's really it for tonight, guys. I've been meaning to go over the TikTok stuff, but things keep on coming up. And there's also a bunch of new Nick Reiner videos too. Yeah, it'll most likely be ruled justified. I just think it's excessive. That's what I say. Yeah. It is what it is. Can't change it now. All we can do is learn from it. That's what these things present. So what's to learn? What's my end take? The woman should comply, of course. The woman probably shouldn't panic. The woman probably shouldn't be going that far to obstruct when what's the best you could even hope for? Nothing. So all that's true. The wife didn't help with her shouting. The ICE agents seem to give conflicting views with their left hand pointing and get the fuck out of the car. And then with him, I don't know. It just seems like he didn't need to be there. Like he could have stepped to the side instead of shooting. So I have a lot of criticisms of the whole thing. Lots of criticism. You got it tonight, the night owl. Excuse me. You got a cat from across the pond. Good night, Danielle. Good night, George. Good night, beautiful. Good night, YouTube. Danielle. Objection. Sally. Yep, I agree with that, Sally. He didn't need to be there. Didn't need to be in that spot. But can't change it now. Good night, Eval. Good night, Do. Thanks for participating, everyone. Thanks for the super chats. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for liking. You're all the best. And I will see you all tomorrow night. Good night, good fight, as they say.